6:01, we'll call the meeting to order. The December 15, 2021 meeting of the Cohasset School Committee. Would all members present please indicate so in roll call? Mrs. Caleri?
Present.
Mr. Dial?
Present.
Mr. Kearney will be arriving late, he informed me. Mrs. St. Ange?
Present.
And I am present, Craig McClellan, with 4 members present. We have a quorum as of 6:01 p.m. Happy holidays, everyone. Welcome to our students, our staff, our principals that are here. It's wonderful to see everyone. It's great to have a full room.
Sure is.
As one of the only public bodies I think I know that are meeting in person right now, it's great to have a room of people participating in this. So welcome, everyone. First agenda item is always public comment. So that, I always say this, but for those of you who heard it before, I'm sorry, but for those of you who haven't, it may be useful. Public comment is the section of the agenda reserved for discussion points that are not already on the agenda. So if you have a comment or a discussion point related to something that's on the agenda, please wait until we get to that point in the meeting. If you are here for a masking comment or something related to masking, we have a masking issue on the agenda. So let's wait until we get there because I don't want to discuss masking twice. And that is on the agenda towards the latter part of the superintendent's report related to middle school, but we can discuss all masking once we get there. Yeah. I think that makes sense. So yes. At this point, and if you're watching from home, utilize the Q&A feature on Zoom to make a public comment. And we'll give you a few seconds to do that. If you're here in the room, you can just raise your hand and step up to the plate and state your name and your address.
That's me.
Recording in progress.
Anything?
Nope.
Okay, not seeing anything. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the superintendent's report. And this time I'll turn the meeting over to our superintendent of schools, Dr. Patrick Sullivan.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chairman McClellan. And I am really happy to see all the students here and some of their families. And this should be great. It actually ties into my update because my update has a lot to do with music and the arts that we've been celebrating over the last couple of weeks since we met. So since we met, we had a wonderful performances of Mamma Mia, the musical, by the high school drama club, and that was very successful. We also had a wonderful middle school concert. That was a lovely event, and we had some incredible collaboration and visits from our high school music groups down to our elementary schools. So it was lovely to see them performing so well. It felt very normal to me. It just was a wonderful thing. And then, as always, and Mrs. Moriarty and her team do a fantastic job collaborating pre-K through 12. So you saw a lot of those collaborations with our Deer Hill band and our high school band. It was great to see. From a district perspective, it was really special. So. We're trucking along. We're excited for the upcoming holidays and a bit of a break, but these are important days to stay focused. And the music was definitely a morale boost and an uplifter for everyone. So I'll turn it over. We have a lot of students here and a lot of excellent things ahead. So I don't want to take up too much time jabbering on, but I will now turn it over to Jake. Who, as you all know, is one of our Superintendent Advisory Council members and one of our student liaisons. So Jake, I'll leave it to you to update a bit on life from a student's perspective over the last couple of weeks. Jake?
Yeah, so obviously I think the biggest thing to talk about first would definitely be masking and getting rid of it at the high school, which, like I've talked about this before when we talked about that initially, but it's one of those things that it's really nice once you do it and you don't realize what it's like and just how kind of easy it makes it to get through the day and just all sorts of simplistic things like that. And that's just been a really nice experience. And I think everybody, feels pretty comfortable. And in terms of people who remain masked, I don't see anybody judging them. I see everybody being really respectful, which I know is something that's been super important. So, it's just been, it's what you're comfortable with and everybody respects that either way. So I think that's really important. And then also in terms of the arts, I know that that's been a big thing too. I saw Mamma Mia and it was awesome. My sister, who I am gonna shout out, was hilarious. I was so excited to see it. I had to wait until Sunday and it was so painful to wait, but it was amazing. And then I have a little brother who's in the Osgood. And he saw the holiday tour when they went around to the schools and he like loved it. He was like, they were amazing. I didn't think they'd remember the words, but they did. And I was like, yeah, they were, but you know, so it was just awesome. Just a great month for the arts, which is so amazing.
That's great. My favorite moment of that was just watching the faces of the Osgood students
Oh,
as they watched the band perform and how they were really lighting up. They're at lunch, so that, you know, they were spaced and had masks off, and you could
Right.
see the bright beaming smiles and the kids singing along and, you know, moving with the music, and it just shows you the power of music. It was great. So keep going, Jake. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, and then just in terms of like generally how students are doing, I think there's still a really great energy at the school and, you know, it just feels like we're moving forward kind of, and, you know, it's still stressful, but, you know, I think a lot of good things are going on and I think people are pretty happy about that.
How are our seniors doing?
Good, everybody's getting information now, so, you know, it's like give or take, you know, but, no, I think everybody's feeling better.
Good.
You know, especially for seniors, like once you get to January, it's like smooth sailing kind of. for the
Right,
rest-
yeah.
For the rest, so. Kind of. But yeah, I think everybody's
Good.
just doing really well. It's going off well.
Okay, great. Thanks. Great update, Jake. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Jake?
I don't, but I love the the full district perspective that you gave us.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. So thanks to your whole family.
Okay, Jake, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
Thanks so much.
Okay, have a great night. We could serenade him out, but I think spare him that. Bye, Jake, thank you. And I'll just have Dr. Collins update a little bit on our professional development that happened, very briefly, just.
Real quick. So, yeah, we had half day last day, as all of you know. And we had some really terrific professional development at the high school. We had representatives from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education looking from their Safe Schools program for really having discussions around our LGBTQ population. And the middle school worked with Sarah Shannon on project-based learning. And at the elementary level, they had math ed camps and they worked on Bridges Math and collaborated across grade level and worked with the math specialists. So that was a very productive day also. So yeah, it was a nice day. We have another one coming up in January.
We do. It was a very productive day. It's nice to see everybody working and doing some great things to really develop further. So, and
It was a good day.
excited for that.
With no further ado.
With no further ado, because I think we all want to get to the wonderful things ahead of us. So my pleasure to announce Stephanie Moriarty. I'll let her introduce her team and anybody who's here. But Stephanie is the Director of Fine Arts and Music, 6 through 12. Does an amazing job in so many ways in our district. So I want to thank Stephanie for that. And as you see in front of you, school committee members, you have a little bit of an agenda here.
Program.
Tells you everybody who will be performing, and to say we're proud of them is an understatement. And I will leave it to Stephanie and take it away.
Thank you so much for having us. It has been an awesome and very busy fall. And I will take Jake's lead and give the shout outs. I think, everyone, teachers included, were concerned in the pandemic that it might kind of darken the arts, but there have been some very vibrant and creative and wonderful things that have gone on virtually. We've done, Veterans Day concerts and virtual arts nights and things, but we are certainly excited to be back live and welcoming our families and community members. To have the stage lights up again is invigorating, and visiting artists and so on. So without further ado, because no one wants to hear me talk, we have brought the very best of all of those events that Dr. Sullivan highlighted for us. And we are going to start with our 5th grade musicians, who are going to be in their very first concert, performing one of their pieces for you right now. Well, they performed with us on Friday, so this is a highlight from that concert. So this is our 5th grade and high school musicians performing our first holiday concert. Are you ready? Yes, we can do it. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. graders. They put together the music and performed on Friday and again tonight. And you can see that they're certainly under the direction of Mr. John DeWall at the Deer Hill School. They do a phenomenal job. So congratulations with graders. Very well done.
Great job, guys.
So
Thank you.
As we do a quick little set change, it's, as Dr. Sullivan also alluded to, it's one of our favorite things to do to collaborate because I remember being a young physician and sitting next to a high school student myself and realizing both the undertaking that I was doing and how hard it was to learn this new thing, but that the potential and the relationships that grow. We really pride ourselves on our mentoring and sharing across the district. So, and all of the teachers have a wonderful partnership. And hopefully you also, I was able to put together, as a team building exercise, we put together a slideshow, which hopefully, if you haven't seen it yet, you'll be able to. It also has a wonderful representation of our visual arts and a great tie-dye sponsored by our parent groups and ceramics at all the different age levels and some beautiful pieces that have also reached out to the community. So you'll be able to see the visual side through that presentation. So we welcome up now. Come on up, don't be shy. I was in my office one day and Ms. Heglin came running in and said, "Are you free? Are you free? You have to come hear this." This incredible group of students, and it was a highlight of the day to listen to them perform. So this is the 6th grade after school choir. 6 and 7. 6 and 7. Oh, we've added more. That's even better.
I was following the I was following the I was following the I was following I was following the black girls following their coats, the scars of red tied round their throats to keep their little heads from falling in the snow. Then I turned round and there you go, and Michael you would fall and turn the white snow red as strawberries in the summertime. I was following the black girls following their coats, with scars of red tied round their throats to keep their little heads from falling in the snow. Then I turned round and there you go, and Michael you would fall and turn the white snow red as strawberries in the summertime. I was following the black girls swallowed in their coats, with scars of red tied round their throats to keep their little heads from falling in the snow. Then I turned round and there you go, and Michael you would fall and turn the white snow red as strawberries in the summertime.
Congratulations. That was under the direction of our phenomenal middle school part teacher, Isabel Headland, who had over 200 students singing last Thursday. So that was an accomplishment. All right. What? We're getting excited. All right. Come on up. And one final.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
All right, here. Yeah, all right. And then we are there. You're great. Could not be more proud of the cast of Mamma Mia and the incredible work that they did, starting in early September in mass and on stage and late nights, while they excelled academically and on playing fields and were just amazing, kind humans. So here is a small taste, a little showcase from the musical Mamma Mia.
I work all night, I work all day to pay the bills I have to pay. Ain't it sad? And still there never seems to be a single penny left for me. That's too bad. In my dreams, I have a plan. If I got me a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work at all. I'd fool around and have a ball. Money, 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 must be funny in a rich man's world. Money, 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 always sunny in a rich man's world. Mamma mia, here I go again. My, how can I resist ya? Mamma mia, does it show again? My, just how much I missed ya. Yes, I've been broken hearted, blue since the day we parted. Why did I ever let you go? Mamma mia, now I really know. My, I should not have let you go. Having the time of your life. See that girl, watch that scene, dig in the dancing queen. See that girl, watch that scene, dig in the dancing queen.
Fantastic.
Somehow I ended up with a bet.
You got two.
That was awesome.
So that's it for
Keep in mind.
presentation. That was a lot. We thank you all so much students, for your continued effort, talents, sharing your love of the arts with us. It's an honor as your teachers. So thank you again for having
Great
us.
job.
For the,
Yeah.
no, that was
Anything
fantastic.
for Artie, or any members of the
Thank you, girls. Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you. Great
everyone.
job. Awesome. Craig, did you want to have any questions or?
I asked, I don't know if anyone has any, I think I also happy to have the kids go home.
Absolutely.
But
I just have 35
I mean,
questions.
the faculty members are still here, so if you'd like to ask them a question about the program.
Good.
Yeah, please. So, Mrs. Cleary, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dial, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Kearney, I know you have questions. You've been waiting a long time.
I know, and I'm sorry I late, I was coaching, and I just gotta say, what a thrill to see it back. Hartson back and the performance, and to see them just do that, like, that takes a lot of courage and a lot of practice. Because they weren't able to do that without the practice, and that goes to you, awesome teachers, and thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I was remiss, this is Abby Aronstam, who is our.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
Good job.
So all of the musical geniuses.
Tremendous.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's probably so.
look forward to 2022, more of.
Yes, we have a high school concert tomorrow night, so every grade level has performed the Osgood Holiday Stroll is in progress, so you have a chance to peek in. I know they're continuing Thursday and Friday, so
Great.
all of our students, pre-K through 12, will have a chance to perform, which is pretty phenomenal, given that we counted and we've been sort of dim on the live piece since 2019, so the return is very sweet, and we're enjoying it, so.
So
It's
great.
exciting.
Great job. That
Thank
was
you
great.
very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful job. Wonderful job.
Well, what a way to start.
It was
That was
amazing
a
way
great
to
way to
start.
start. Shows you how
I
good,
know.
I feel lonely now.
Right?
shows you how wonderful music and the arts and how it can make you feel and what it does for a school district too.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
the absence of it is problematic. So, you know, not that we didn't skip a beat. They worked so hard with it, but it just shows you how prominent we need to have music because it just makes a world of difference for the kids, for the staff, and I think for our families too. Proud to have
Absolutely.
such a great team.
Glad you got the tail end of that.
Yeah, I was glad too. That was good. Like you said, not only does it's the arts, but public speaking and self-confidence.
Yes.
and all the beautiful things that the arts do. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. All right, so moving on. So our next people who we're going to have come and speak are our two principals who actually deserve a lot of credit for the support of what you just saw in the arts at our middle school and high school. And I have to remember, and Chair McClellan, if I forget, maybe you remind me to make sure that we do a vote at the end of this on all four school
Yes.
improvement plans.
Yep.
We held off the vote till we heard all the plans, and then we would vote and approve them, because that's a school committee purview. So without further ado, I'll have Principal Scott come up, and he's going to present the Bassett High School School Improvement Plan. I'm going to attempt to, there we go. There we go.
It's far less entertaining.
But don't get yourself
But all
short.
good.
I did not.
Yeah, tough act to follow. Scott.
That's right, I'll do my best. So our school improvement plans are a little bit delayed this year, which I appreciate. It allowed us to get through the strategic plan and some other work that we were doing that really kind of informed what we put together. We have a great committee. We have 2 faculty members, a school committee rep, 2 parents, and 8 students, which is the most we've ever had by far. We're lucky if we get 2, and we're lucky if we get regular attendance. They've been at every meeting, and their input is really great. Most of them are juniors, one is a sophomore, which means that they have a little bit of experience and perspective, but they also have a stake in the game in the sense that they're going to see a lot of these things realized before they graduate. So I'm very happy with that. On the plus side, we were actually able to start a little bit earlier this year than we normally do. Oftentimes, we're still struggling to get the committee together by September. We were able to meet in September. And at our first 2 meetings in September and October, we really went through a lot of paperwork. We went through the strategic plan. We went through our student wellness survey that Safe Harbor helps us with. We went through the leadership team goals that we put together that came out of the strategic plan. We went through a report that was on the back end of our ICIA survey, which was the survey on culture. And a subsequent report that came out of that, that focused on, that was informed by some student and parent focus groups. So we went through that, and we went through some student feedback that we had through a program called Team Truth that culminated in a group of about 50 students or so getting together to really articulate what they saw as the problems that they faced and kind of identify some potential solutions to that. So the three main goals that we have kind of come out of those. So I'll skip forward to those. The first one really is the student-driven goal, and that is to improve the student learning experience and overall student wellness by reducing academic stress and providing personalized learning paths. One of the things that came out of the Teen Truth Workshop in particular was that a couple of things. They don't have time. They feel like they're under a lot of academic pressure. They don't feel like there are a lot of paths to success. These are all things that we've heard in other surveys and vehicles as well. And homework was one of the things that they really wanted to tackle. And they were really thoughtful about what that meant, because it doesn't necessarily mean that there are hours and hours of homework put upon each student in the eyes of the teacher. But are we doing that efficiently? Do we understand kind of the nature and purpose and value of homework? Is that a conversation that we're having regularly? Are there ways that we can build time into the school day to make homework more efficient? So all of that stuff, I'm excited to kind of get tackling. We've had conversations among the faculty about, particularly the department heads, and some teachers have done kind of classroom surveys to see what student experiences are, but really getting kind of into that and understanding what the stressors are, what they would be willing to tackle as personalized learning, because sometimes getting out of the stated path is perceived as risky. So really kind of getting into that one is the first goal. And those align obviously with our compass points and our strategic initiatives and the purpose of the school improvement plans stated by the state. The second two really build on things that we've already done, but that the students in particular saw as very valuable. So cultivating relationships between students and staff. You know, one of the things that is an interesting phenomenon to me is that we're very small and students still feel like they don't know each other. You know, they feel like they end up in these kind of similar paths, similar classrooms, similar friend groups, similar parent friend groups, and never really have the opportunity to sit down and understand each other as people. That was something that came out of Challenge Day a few years ago. Kids still talk about it. I know we haven't been able to get them back for reasons that are state driven and driven. They aren't traveling. They had to reduce their staff quite a bit. So we've been in a lot of conversations with them, but Teen Truth was a kind of a mini version of what we were trying to do with that. And the students really are interested in creating ways to get to know each other better and get to know each other on a human level and not on a stereotypical level. But, you know, the best lacrosse player in third grade is not necessarily the best lacrosse player in high school. And getting away from, you know, we can pick all the senior yearbook superlatives at Deer Hill and save ourselves a lot of time. So they're interested in getting going with that. And then the final one is around equity and cultural competence. They really want to, and this kind of dovetailed on the prior one, they want to talk about things like equity and race and inclusivity and develop empathy for one another. And it's kind of two sides of the same coin, but they really wanted to focus on some of the subgroups and some of the things that aren't obviously or most obviously identified necessarily with Cohasset. And I think there's a lot more diversity of opinion, of experience, of socioeconomic background, of cultural background that kids really would like to dive into and validate and understand each other better from that perspective too. So we'll be looking at a couple of different ways to do this. Some are structural in terms of the school structures. Some are within student groups and trying to get them to articulate and then follow through on some projects that they want to do. We're working with a bunch of different outside groups on some personalized learning. We're doing a lot of professional development around cultural competency and personalized learning. So I think we're doing a lot of things, and this kind of ties it into 3 points that I think if we focus as a school council with the involvement of some other stakeholders, I think we can make some serious headway before the end of the year, for sure.
Thank you, Principal Scott. Any questions for Principal Scott, Ms. Cleary?
I want to say that I am so grateful to be able to be the school committee representative on this school council, because I feel very fortunate to be able to not only
hear from the students directly that are on the council, but I also really value seeing how you interact with them. Like, I think I feel like it's a special dynamic, and I think there is going to be a lot of progress made this year because I think the students are really invested, and I think the students really believe us when we say that we want to know what will make their experience better. It seems to me very clear from the data that's included at the front of the report or the plan, that academics are going well, right? And so it makes me, again, very grateful to know that while we're continuing to focus on academic rigor, we also want to create like a hospitable environment for our kids, right? Like, we want them to be comfortable at school. And I really commend you, and will continue to, for being able to, empower the kids to play a role in creating a better environment in the school. And I feel like there are a couple of ways the school committee will look forward to supporting your efforts. We've identified as part of our goals the creation of a community directory, where we've been talking in our communications subcommittee about how we will engage first leaders and educators in the district to find out what they would feel supported by, like what it is that they need from the community, and then how best to ask the community if what they're interested in providing for us. So I look forward to being able to collaborate with you, make sure that we're not, reinventing any wheels or duplicating efforts, just supporting what you're looking to do. And I also have had the opportunity to speak with Elisa, and she's very excited about the sort of the enthusiasm of the adults in the building to really learn. And I think that's amazing, because honestly, like, when we think we're done learning, it's a big problem.
Can you specify who you're talking about?
Elisa?
Yeah.
Elisa Gittens Carl, our METCO director, yep. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cleary. Mr. Dial?
Yeah, I'll just have a couple questions, comments. I really like the overall plan. And I like that you're putting this together and creating actionable goals, because with that, you can actually see forward progress. One thing, I'm not an educator, but I was educated at one point, and I remember going through school and hating homework and the like. But I also remember going through school, and it seems to me that kids these days have much more obligations, many more things that they're doing. And so, I like one of your action points of the evaluating the nature, purpose, and value of homework, because when I was in school, I think that was the extension of school. And now the extension of school is everywhere. You have many more activities. I think we saw something recently where we have something like dozens and dozens of clubs and kids getting together. So, figuring out how to have that experience be looked at as a whole is great. I'd love to hear more as you evaluate that going forward, because there might be learnings there that can be applicable across the schools. So I definitely respect that one. And overall, I think the rest is a great plan. I wish you luck in the implementation.
Thank you. Some of what we're trying to do, which wasn't a priority years ago, is to build some of the stuff into the school day. So we're really going to work when we come back from break of articulating what we expect our utility period to look like, which is kind of a flex block. Because as Ron Ford used to say, he was the former athletic director, like, you got to pay the rent here. We're not that big, so you got to play multiple sports. You got to have kids who are in student council and in the band and on the soccer team. And there's just not enough time after school or before school to do all of that, especially with everything, as you say, being so structured. And then potentially homework on top of that. And I've said before, we schedule them into 14-hour days, and then we wonder why they're so stressed out.
Yep.
We wouldn't expect that of ourselves. So, the kids are really open to, working with us. And I got to give the senior class a lot of credit, because you can sit there and preach all you want about what you want the culture to be, but unless they actually embrace it and live it and give you some feedback and feel like they're being heard and are empowered a little bit with some guidance, it just doesn't work. But I think, fundamentally, even if you're not in education, I don't think it's any different than any workplace where if you get up and you hate going to your job, you're just not going to be that productive. And if you get up and you like the people you work with and you feel valued and you feel like you're making a difference, then your output is going to be greater. And that's where these seniors have really been great. The juniors and the sophomore on our school council have been great. And, that kind of dialogue just creates those conditions, which I think move us forward.
Yeah. You reminded me of my second comment that I lost in the train of thought on your second goal. Another thing that I really appreciate is the proactive interventions and the ways to recognize talent. I think that's, we want to make sure everyone succeeds, but we should also spend time figuring out how to challenge those who are already succeeding and making sure that they're getting the exposure that they need. So these personalized paths, I think that's fantastic. So,
and that's a place, to Ms. Cleary's point, where we could use a little bit of help in terms of the publication of it. Independent schools have marketing people, they have advertising people so that they can generate enrollment and create a brand and stuff like that. We don't. And so some of the feedback I've heard over the years is, well, why do you guys only publish sports? And I said, who do you mean by us guys? And they said, well, the Mariner. And I said, well, the Mariner is not us guys, right? So like I can put so much stuff out in the newsletter. Our teams can put stuff out in their, boosters organizations, but the more that we can, create this broader understanding of what kids are doing and highlight even individuals who are doing really excellent things. We've got a great project coming up with CSCR that's going to go into the summer and into next year. Those are the types of things that really need to be highlighted. And sometimes we just don't either have the resources or the information to know that all of this stuff is going on. One of the school librarian, Mrs. Cerruti, pointed me to an article that she saw that a couple of our kids are actually going over to the Situate Select Board, I believe, to talk about some of the work that they did over the summer in CSCR with the eelgrass population and how that affects the shellfish population and, the sustainability of that and all that's going on with the lobster industry and everything. So, those things are great. I found out about it like third hand.
Yeah.
So, for us to get that information, be able to share that out only will generate interest from other kids, other opportunities, other community partnerships. So that stuff is where we need to be headed.
Yep.
For sure.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Mr. Kearney?
Awesome. Well, there's always awesome questions before me. First, I'd like to thank you and your staff, and as a father with 2 kids and a son on his way up, they're doing really well. I think this has been a challenging season for all of us, teachers, administrators, everyone. And I love the proactive approach. I love the student government. You're seeing more kids running for student government. It's getting really, that says a lot. That says that they're being listened to, because if they're getting shut up, they're not running for things. And some of the concerns that you bring up are big. They're big concerns about, kids getting to communicate with each other, like a lacrosse. And we've always found, for me, the biggest communicator is food. We have this JV varsity thing going on, but when you bring food on a bus, they're all friends, and I'm glad to report that we're going to be talking about food services later and how we're going to be opening up the more room and more spacious about trying to educate kids, children on better food choices. So I think that's a positive step. I know you have a lot of facilities situations that I wish that we were a little bit more proactive 5 or 6 years ago, but the good news is that the town is making improvements on that. What are some of the things that you see that, like you said, and I think it's important that you pointed out that we're not branding things, because honestly, I went to the varsity girls game the other day. There was no national anthem. It's there, but there's so much more you could do. I mean, I was involved with teachers playing Osgood against Dare Hill. 1,600 kids showed up. I thought I was on the Celtics. I mean, I got to play in it. It was amazing. So just to see our kids not get that kind of communications because we're not branded. The good news is we do have a new technology director, I assume, and hopefully that we can work together. And what I advise is maybe we should just ask the kids to be more involved in it, because honestly, it was kind of like, it really wasn't a good show for the basketball. And I think if you added music and some lights and let the kids maybe in the middle school maybe take part in that, because I think that's what kids need to do. They need to participate in anything. And one of the things I'm happy about is Dr. Sullivan and I are working on trying to get a participation report. You know, there's so many clubs out there that we never knew about. There's a chess club, there's a math club. And let's get these kids out of their houses. And, you know, we've talked to maybe doing a stipend for an athletics, not athletics, but a activities director. You know, I'm hoping that the teachers would be, it would be a stipend for something like that. And maybe we look at the wellness and the facilities end of it. You know, that wellness center is not really a gym. I mean, we should have what every other school does, new treadmills, new ellipticals. And, you know, I was wondering, do you see the same as that? And should we put that in something like our facilities capital reports to maybe rebuild it? Because it's really geared towards a football team. Because it's not like gym.
Yeah, I mean, it's geared towards the 1980s weight room.
Right, exactly. Which,
Most of the equipment.
exactly. And, you know, and for full, but what I'm trying to say is that if we put some gender-friendly equipment in there, then, you know, middle school kids should be able to go in there and not do, they don't do it, need to do a bench press, but there should be a, like, you do, we hire someone to come in and. No, if we were to get a strength coach to come in and just educate kids on why it's important to exercise, I think that would go a long way. So some of the facilities things, if you could remember, we want to help. And I think that it's been this, oh, we can't afford it. You know, that's for the taxpayers to decide. If they want to decide, but I'd like to see like a bigger wish list from you guys, because hey, they just passed the $750,000 for a new town hall. I guess we're rich around here. So I just don't want us to give our kids, to hold them short, because you know other schools have way more resources and way better facilities. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
hard,
schools in our demographic definitely have nice facilities, there's no doubt about it.
right. So my thoughts are there is if we can't give them the buildings, then maybe we can give them the teachers and the math specialists, and because we got a lot of catching up to do. And I just want you to know that we're all here to support you, and we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mr. St. On.
No questions, just compliments. I love hearing how much student voice is in here. It's clearly so much a part of it is your thought process, and it's just so visible in the school improvement plan.
Doesn't happen without them.
Principal Scott, the celerity and effectiveness with which you forge meaningful and productive relationship with your students, all of your students in your school, is standing alone makes you an excellent high school principal. So it's not surprising that you're presenting a well thought out, school improvement plan that is reflective of the district's mission and the strategic plan. To that end, though, I'm going to be a little critical in that I didn't see compass points 3 and 4 reflected anywhere in any of the goals, in the school improvement goals, SMART goals. Those being resources and community engagement.
Yep.
Mrs. Caleri alluded to a community engagement related sort of initiative in the community directory. But I was wondering, and Mr. Kearney was just identifying some facilities related, which are brick and mortar resources, shortcomings. So I was wondering, I'm positive that was done knowingly and purposefully. So I'm wondering what your insight is into that.
So resources is a little bit easier to answer.
Okay.
I try to have a school improvement plan that's within the control of the school, and resources really aren't. That's within the control of the town. So I'll leave that, and to Mr. Kearney's point about how we can work together. One of the things that people may lose sight of this year, and if you talk to any principal in the South Shore, this is actually a harder year than the last 2 years. The first year we kind of came in under adrenaline, we were trying to figure it out. Last year was just a lot of moving pieces. This year is kind of a dual expectation that we're supposed to be back to normal and we're supposed to be in the middle of COVID. And how do we reconcile the two? And it's kind of taken its toll on teachers, it's taken its toll on kids. So one of the things I just think is important to realize is that that's there, and that our participation rate among the kids in different clubs is good. You're going to find it's excellent at the next meeting. But we're having a tougher time getting all of the extra volunteers. It's the extra mile, the extra hour after school, the regular people to work games and scoreboards, and all of that stuff is difficult. And even, and I think if you're familiar with this story, we did turn to a couple of kids and said, do you mind, keeping the score for the soccer game? They wanted, $20 or
Yeah,
something.
my son ended up doing it.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's exactly
So that's
right.
just kind of where we're at. And so to put some more things on kids and say, well, could you do this more? Could you, there's just not that much capacity for it. The resources, I feel like, is a little bit out of our control. The specific compass points in the fourth, or strategic initiatives in the fourth compass point didn't seem to quite align with what we were trying to do. But I think it's woven in here. So a lot of the personalized learning, Holly Hill was out with the middle school today. They're coming to finish the greenhouse tomorrow. That's going to dovetail with some of our spring environmental courses. The training that we're doing for teachers with the CSER project that's coming up, I think is going to translate into a lot more student opportunities. When we have our student spotlight, we're bringing Madison Gould from 143 TV, because that doesn't get a lot of play necessarily in terms of the academic program. So there are more community partnerships there. But I think, for me at least, where this is kind of a one-year plan, that's almost like, let's do this first, and then that's kind of step two. So that was kind of the rationale behind it.
No, that's a good answer, and I think it is worth reiterating that the mission is we place students first, and I think that your goals, especially coming through, not totally out of what we've just experienced, I think your goals sensibly put an emphasis on students through, focusing on the CP1 and CP2, which is teaching and learning, social emotional wellness. So I think that's in line. I was curious more than anything else. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the rationale.
Sure.
I also think it's worth pointing out that, when we heard Mrs. Farrell last meeting, part of her community outreach was the high school. And so it is a part of it. I feel like the high school kids are so present in so many parts of the community.
Absolutely.
It's like
Well, tonight too.
You can see
Correct.
that. And in the
Correct.
holiday concert too, where they
Yeah.
collaborated.
Sure.
And wrapping
A lot of
presents.
small, very successful endeavors there. So a couple of, the football team went to read to Osgood. We had the music concert that Ms. Moriarty talked about. We have the law classes going into the courtroom and down to the police station. And, I think when you see them on the whole, there is a lot of community engagement going on. It's just in really small pockets.
Right.
Now.
Even all together.
I think they call it the holiday stroll,
Yep.
which was last week.
Doing
The football team,
trapping.
lobster crab,
Yeah, my daughter's,
Christmas tree.
yeah.
The best lobster trap tree on the
Right.
East
I mean,
Coast.
And even when that, as an aside, when
It is
that
quite a
project was proposed, the organizer came in and sat down, and I was in the room with the principal and a student, and the student sat there and he said, all right, so what are we trying to do? And he sketched out what the dimensions and weight and angles and all that needed to be using calculus. He's like, well, this is what you need to build. The guy said, great, let's do that.
Yeah.
perfect.
So
We'll walk it out
even those
together.
things, but they don't get a lot of press necessarily.
Sure.
But they are definitely happening, and I think we can certainly do more and build that up more.
You mentioned the Mariner. 3 years ago, when I've been on the committee for 4 years, and there used to be the Mariner newspaper right there, and they're gone. So it is up to us, the technology, and I love what you're doing. To your point, all the way up, all the kids they're playing soccer, they're all wearing the same uniforms. And if we can get these kids to get involved in going to some of these games, I sure will tell try to ask my 8th grade boys that I played coach basketball to let them go to some of the games and show some pride in the town, and someday you might be able to play for that team.
Well, Mr. Kearney, it was very nice to see a full bus going to the Super Bowl from the middle school.
Yeah, that was great.
And it was a
That
tribute
great.
to the kids, to the families, and to the staff at both the middle and high school, that the kids were wonderful and did a great job. So I think
We're
we're
seeing
building
it.
that, you're starting to see it.
Yeah.
but
Well,
appreciate
that's the one
it.
opportunity we really have, is that, the only class in the building that's ever been through normal school, pre-pandemic school, is the senior class.
That's right.
Right? Nobody else in the high school has been there. Nobody in the middle school has really been there, because it's only 3 grades. And that's where I really value what the seniors are trying to do right now, because they came into the year saying, we want this to be about everybody, not just about us. And they're really kind of modeling that. And to the extent that the middle school kids pick up on that energy and the way to behave and how class people act and what it means to be a skipper and to be part of this community, that's gonna go a long way, because it's just gonna be what they know.
This year's seniors seem like a pretty special group, actually.
It's,
Thank you very much.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every senior class is unique in different ways. This one was my favorite in September.
I can't
You
wait
usually
to see
take
what
some
special
photos.
project you have in store for us to acknowledge them at the end of the year.
So, anyone have any other questions for Principal Scott before we allow him to leave?
Thank you, Principal Scott.
All right.
Thank you, Principal Scott.
Thank you very much.
Now I'd call up Principal Mills. As you see, you're going to see obvious connections to the strategic plan in all of these plans. It's a nice thing to see, and I will call up your improvement plan. And there it is. Take it away, Principal Mills.
It didn't really work out, Brian left, but he and I did work out a musical number. We counted on the backup singers.
Why you laughing?
When you were there.
I'd really like to see that, actually.
Next time. All right, thanks for having us. The first few pages are the same as the other schools with the standardized school improvement plan. So in working with a really, really good school council, similar to Brian's experience, we started the year creating a school improvement plan, which is a task we would normally do in the spring, and you're sort of planning out the following year. This was sort of creating a plan in the midst of a lot of things. So our focus ended up being teaching and learning, SEL, and parent and community engagement. The first two goals, the SEL and then the teaching and learning goal, which is SMART Goal 1, we really focused on the benchmark assessments that we implemented for this year. So the first goal around teaching and learning was really focused on having the iReady benchmark assessment so that we could sort of see where kids are, where the strengths and weaknesses are at the beginning of the year, and the goal is around a 10% improvement school-wide. We hope to accomplish that both with the really fine instruction, including project-based learning that occurs at CMS, but also we were able to add a wonderful resource in a reading specialist who's now working with small groups, which in the parlance of tiered instruction are tier 2 groups. She's working with some individuals, but then she's helping all the ELA teachers with what we recognized was probably the greatest challenge, which was around reading comprehension. So she was helping teachers with implement new strategies in their ELA classes to overall lift the level of all students' reading comprehension. So that's why we're confident that as we do the benchmark at the end of the year, that we're going to see some real growth accomplished. Buckle 2 is around SEL, and that's really connects to the benchmark assessment, the holistic student assessment that we adopted from Care Institute. I was here last month to talk about how that went and what we learned. And this is, if you remember, what we really recognized is that kids have some tremendous strengths. For our kids, it's emotional control, and we do see that every day. Among the areas that they're challenged by, it's the Parent Institute called it assertiveness, but it's really student advocacy and voice. And part of that might be that at that age, the 11, 12, 13, they have to learn it. It also might be that institutionally they haven't had the opportunity. So we had focused as a school, we talked about we're going to do 4 strategies. And like I talked about last month, if you look at the classroom level and the team level, we're in the dozens of new strategies. Like we're talking about scores of new things that teachers and the teams are doing. School-wide, our biggest strategy has been the student council reformation. And as we've moved forward since I've seen you last, and we've got a group planning a dance in January as a winter semi-formal, which we've never had before. The kids are really excited. They've done a great job because they've not only planned what they hope to be a really fun event, a safe event because of COVID, but they really want it to be an inclusive event, and they want every single student to, be able to attend and feel really connected. So, once again, I feel like we're on the right track. Later in the year, later in the spring, we'll do the peer assessment again, and we hope to see some improvement, but we don't do it at the beginning and the end of the year. We'll end up doing it probably about March, like 2/3 of the way through, so we can see the progress we've made, but we could also see sort of what to think about the last part of the year and heading into the summer for next year, where our next challenges might be. So, like I said, I think the 4 strategies was a pretty low bar. I think we're well above that, but I feel like same thing, we're well on our way to accomplishing that. I feel really good about it. I'm excited about the next assessment to see where the kids are. And then our third goal, this doesn't involve a benchmark assessment, but with the school council, I really asked them, really I posed a question, a challenge, if anything, help me find 3 new traditions. We had written it up as new methods for developing effective communication with between homeschool and community. Like the parents recognize, we regularly communicate via email or newsletter. We're always available for phone calls. It wasn't the day-to-day communication we were worried about. We were looking for traditions and things that would bring parents into the school. This is my 3rd year. The first year, we had a great open house, and then COVID struck, and that was it. The doors were closed. And last year, our doors were closed all year for visitors. This year, we've had a great open house, and what we talked about is let's find ways for parents to get involved in the life of the school. So we brainstormed, and the 3 things we came up with was, the first was similar to a speakers bureau. The idea was establishing a directory of parents who might be willing to come either in and speak or speak via Zoom based on professional experiences, personal experiences, travel, things like that. And that would be created through a Google survey, a Google form that would ask parents, if you're interested, what sorts of things have you done, would you want to share? And then once we compile that, be able to give it to a faculty so that if you were a social studies teacher and you're teaching your Asia unit, you're in Southwest Asia, and you thought, what, I'd love to have maybe somebody who, maybe has been in Afghanistan or a Southwest Asian country, and you'd be able to go to the directory and find, oh, well, this parent actually lived in Iran for a couple of years, and this is marvelously specific. It's a situation we had 2 years ago. We were able to have a parent come in who had lived in Iran for a couple of years, and she spoke to the classes, the current 9th graders, spoke to those social studies classes, and it was marvelous. And the teacher really loved it. The parent was energized. The kids talked about it for the rest of the year. So we want to make that sort of thing available for our faculty. And now with, the ubiquitous Zoom, it's easy to put something like that together where somebody, even if they take a break during their workday, they could Zoom with a class, record it, and the teacher could show it to the rest of her classes. So we're excited about that. We're still working with our PSO liaison. We really want to establish a fundraising event. We recognize the PSO, just about all their revenue is generated from the fund runs at like Deer Hill and Osgood, and there isn't an event currently at the PSO. So we're working closely with our PSO, and we want to establish and make a tradition of an event that we could work with families and do some fundraising and for the benefit of the PSO. And then lastly, quite simply, another sort of survey, but we thought as we already started looking ahead to the spring for our next school improvement plan, it would be great to create a parent survey to be able to keep our finger on the pulse for where parents are, how they're feeling about the school, because it will inform our school, the improvement planning in the spring, but it would also give parents a chance to sort of just share in a survey, sort of, could be anonymous or not, share their concerns and what they like and any ideas. So we found that all 3 are going to bring parents in more closely, and most of all, they're doable and they're sustainable, because that was some of the things that we talked about. Let's not make this a one and done. Let's have this be a part of who we are. So that's our third goal.
And that last point jumped out at me as a great thing to do district-wide. And we chatted about that a little bit.
Smart. Any questions for Principal Mills? Thank you, Principal Mills. Ms. Cleary?
So one thing I will say is that I feel, again, so fortunate that our middle school families are in you and Dr. Cade's very capable hands. I feel.
Don't leave the faculty out.
Yeah,
Really
no, I
good
know. We're very fortunate. I feel really grateful that the middle school, I think, used to be sort of just like a way to get to the high school. And now it's like an actual school. And I think it's wonderful. So thank you for all of the hard work that you and your team are doing there. And again, I would like to say that we would like to be supportive of helping with any directory creation if we can be.
Absolutely.
Again, we don't want to, complicate things, but we want to be helpful if we can. I did actually have a conversation. My daughter's in kindergarten, not in middle school, but they were talking about holidays. And I said, oh, well, my dad's wife actually just moved back to Saigon. And she could talk to them about TET. If you want to just Zoom, like during TET, we can just have her explain to the kids what that is. So we might be talking about TET in the Osgood. And if that goes well, I can always refer her to you if you like for next year.
It really, it's just amazing how it's opened things up.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, we had an amazing experience with the sixth grade who, during their project-based learning unit, they read The Boy That Harnessed the Wind, a story set in Malawi. Back then, it was before any of us had heard of Zoom, so we Skyped.
That's right. I was
Remember
talking.
Skype?
I remember
Well,
that.
we Skyped
yeah.
with the whole grade, and we Skyped with the author who was in Malawi at the time. And it was easy to put together, relatively easy, some planning, but it was a great day where you got kids able to ask the author about his experiences, because it was an autobiographical, as well as the process of writing, what his culture is like, what it's been like since. What his village is like, and to do it in real time like this. And it's really, I mean, the pandemic obviously, was tragic, but one of the nice pieces is that we discovered Zoom, and it just kind of makes our world a little smaller and accessible.
It does.
So
Very
we're
true.
excited to keep leveraging that.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of project-based learning that could come out of the kids learning about Vietnam, right? Earlier, they might, once the history lessons start, they might say, oh, TET,
Yeah.
TET offensive, really?
Our
That was during
our
TET?
sixth grade does a great unit
Yeah,
on Asia, including East Asia.
So then the last thing I just wanted to, I don't think this is for you specifically. I know we've discussed this already, but the math scores at the front of this are, I think, indicative of like a systemic thing that it seems like we're addressing through changing the curriculum at the elementary
Okay.
school, but I just want to acknowledge that they're very different from the high school. And I feel like maybe we can just keep talking about that and keep revisiting it to make sure that we're doing whatever it is that we can do to be supportive of improvements there.
Busts as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's it.
The benchmark assessment data, we have built tier 2 interventions, like small groups to help the most struggling of our kids. I really like Chairman McClellan's question to Principal Scott about resources. And one of the things that made this possible, especially SMART Goal 1, is the acquisition of a reading specialist as a resource. And I think, now that we've kind of got that in place, I really envision and hope that next year's school improvement plan, our teacher and learning goal would be around math, because we'd be able to integrate a math interventionist or math specialist into our building that would be able to help us accomplish, some growth.
Yeah.
It
And
makes
it's,
sense from a progression.
you're right. Yeah. And it seems like as we're doing that, even with the Deer Hill improvements, we might try to even a little bit more at the Deer Hill, right? Like, what else can we do at the Deer Hill to prepare them for the transition to the middle school?
Part of this, we visited last spring, and we'll visit again this spring. The class, last year we went to a math class, Ms. Johnston's class, and watched Bridges be taught. And I brought a special ed teacher and a sixth grade math teacher. we left really impressed. And last year was a little different. The plan would be to return and continue to learn how kids are learning math. And some of that language and some of that approach, and be able to integrate some of that so that as they transition into the high school, it's not a simple, like a complete change, but it's a normal transition, because ultimately we want to get our kids in a place where they're taking AP Calc and they're taking higher level, algebra.
Right.
So we have to figure out how to, where are they coming in from, and, we know where we have to get them to.
Yeah, so the last thing I'll say is I feel like this whole conversation, this whole evening, and the last time we heard school improvement plans is so indicative of the approach that your leadership team takes. You're not trying to deflect or justify things. You're trying to look at things honestly and improve upon them. And I just really thank you all for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blair. Mr. Dial, do you have any questions for someone else?
Just one. I want to echo the observations. I love these. These plans are great. You guys have put a lot of thought into them. I love how they integrate with our strategic plan, and it really gives a path forward for improving the school. So thank you for being thoughtful about this. The one thing, and it's building on a comment from Ms. Caleri on the math. The SMART Goal 1 is about getting personalized learning. Evidence is going to be an improvement in the reading IRA assessment of 10%. And then you go back and look at the scores, and the math seems to be where we need the attention. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about, we've changed the elementary program, and that will come up as they do. But I don't want to forget about these kids right here in 6, 7, and 8 now. So are there things that, and it's not specifically referenced in the plan, but are there things in your plan that can help address that? Are there things that we as a school committee should be doing to help the kids that are in this transition period now get more improvement in math?
Yeah, currently we're using the tiered system of support. So we do have tier 2 interventions. In other words, small groups, so that kids beyond just their math class, they get extra help in math, especially in the areas that we know they struggle. And then what we're looking at in the spring is a program that might, I could see running after school for both kids that want to get ahead, kids that want to stay where they are, but then kids that, we've targeted that could use some extra help. So currently, even though it's not in the plan, we are planning for this year. And then, like I had said, for going forward, I think we really need a math interventionist, a math specialist that would be able to work with struggling kids, as well as help all the math teachers, stay current and continually improve their craft.
Is there and I don't want to necessarily re-revise the plan, but I do want to keep it on the radar. Is there something we could put in? The plan is not necessarily an objective 10% increase on this metric, but just we will revisit and look at math again as it goes on. I just don't want it to, when people look at the plan, it fall off the radar and not.
So one of the things that we've been fortunate, and I haven't had a chance to tell you because we just got the money. So there was a grant that became available around reimbursing us for what we use for summer learning. So as you know, we had some grant money, but as a district, we had 17,000 left over for the grant for the summer program. We put in 26,000, is that about right? $26,000. We just got that money back. So they gave us that funding, which one of the things that I wrote about was how we were going to use that money in order to be able to have them reimburse the money. So we're going to turn around and use that. Our hope is to create an after-school tutoring program at the middle school this school year. Again, it will be continued on being able to get staffing, and then possibly the ability to do some summer programming. Maybe not to the extent that we were able to do it last year because of the funding, but we never know. So we are keeping it on the forefront because mathematics for us is something that we need to address. You can see it in our data, and we're quite aware of it. We focused on the reading because we got the reading specialist for this year, knowing full well that we're always going to continue on to improve our math skills because we have to. So we have to really address it with our, for the students. But at the same time, it will be a focus for next year in the school improvement plan, because hopefully we'll have a math specialist and we'll be able to do that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your leadership and your thoughtfulness here. I wish you all the success.
Thank you, Mr. Dow. Mr. Kearney?
Yes, awesome. I also want math, and I'm so glad you brought that up because it is, and we talked about it in our school facilities committee meeting. There is a math specialist on our agenda to try to find the funds for it. So that is something that we're working together, trying to do that right now. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad that you reiterated it because I think that's been talked about in how we find the money.
Yeah, Principal Mills has been advocating
Yeah.
for that with data behind it.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
some time, so.
I can't agree with you more. I love this. I would add established in 2018 because the school really is 3 years old and it is brand new in as far as the logos, but also it lacks a couple things and like the PSO. And I only say this, you guys are lucky coming up and having these amazing principals and staff. I'm already living the dream, okay? You guys live in another dream that's in a little courtyard, and then you're gonna
We just
get.
have less sleep.
Yeah, okay, but we got bigger problems. Bigger kids, bigger problems, right, Dr. Sullivan? You can attest to that, right? And that said, I can't agree with you more as far as the math goes. Also, too, is the parent survey, getting the parents involved. You gotta understand, guys, you got the PSO meetings you guys go to within the in some of the elementaries, you're gonna get 30, 40 people. We had 2 at our last PSO meeting. It's just, I don't know if it's a lack of, I don't think they can know that they can get involved at the middle school. And the kids need you the most in the middle school. And I'm just saying that to you guys as somebody who's experiencing it right now. The difference between a 6th grader and an 8th grader is night and day. And you only have to coach them to find out. 6th graders, can I get in, coach? Can I get? 8th graders are like, here's the ball, go run with it. They're playing their own plays. It's just in a huge development age.
Sure.
And it's so important that like everything you dial in on is so important. Like extra curriculum activities after school, huge. Getting kids engaged with each other to make sure that they, this has been a tough year with the way the cafeteria is set up. But those are the things that can bring these kids together. And you guys have a lot of good, and I'm talking to the parents right now, the elementary schools, you guys got a lot to look forward to, but you also need to get involved. I don't think the parents get involved as much as they do in the elementary schools. And I'm serious, guys, like, seems like there's no parent involvement. And I don't think it's the lack of you trying not to do it. I just think it's more of like, the more we can communicate the middle school to come up and say, okay, it's okay to go to PSO meeting at the middle school. We still need you here. And I think when we talk about like even negotiating with the teachers, that we do have to have parent-teacher meetings. Because, Principal Scott came in and talked about, getting it, being proactive. And I think if you don't have those meetings and be proactive, then you're going to miss out. I mean, it happened to me, and I'm a helicopter parent. I am. I pick my kid up. I bring his own lunch. I'm just and I didn't see what was wrong with this. I was asleep. So I just felt like, and I always say this, if I had one meeting and said, hey, he's not doing well here, then I would have done what I did. And we were able to capture that. I mean, my son was really struggling with math, and my daughters do well with it. So we got together as a family and said, let's pray over this. And Bella, get on his math. And he's done incredibly better in his 8th grade versus 7th grade. His grades, and you know what? He likes math again. And I thank that to you, and I thank that to the staff. And like I say to you guys, you have a lot to look forward to. However, there's a lot of work to do with some of the resources that we haven't had at the middle school.
Yeah, it's a good message. I think sometimes as children get older and they get into middle school, I think sometimes parents think that, okay, the kids are on their own. And it is a time to let go a little bit, but not all the way. Your kids still need you, and we still need the parents.
Well said.
Well said.
Well said.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Chairman, could I speak very briefly?
No, not right now, Mr. Green. I just want to finish the school committee comments.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then I'll take, sure. Very briefly. Sure. Mrs. St. Ange.
I think it's a terrific plan. I also like just kind of following along in the parent involvement. I think that you are introducing so many concrete ways in which people can get involved and don't have to be, sitting in the classroom with their kids like they would in elementary school, but it's like a parallel involvement, which is so age appropriate and comfortable. And I look forward to how these new traditions are going to grow, because I think it's such a nice direction to be moving in, and you're just so respectful and aware of that period of child development. And it just really aligns with everything that should be happening. So thank you, really well put together.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. I don't have any questions, so I will turn to Mr. Creighton if you'd like to make a comment. Could you just, you know how it goes, state your name and your address?
Thanks for coming, Jack.
23 Cushing Road, member of the select board. I was just coming by and I want to stop by. I like to see what various committees are doing. We certainly respect your autonomy. You run the schools. We don't have anything. But one of the things that is very important, and we saw this underlined on Monday night's town meeting, is that parents got involved and made a big difference in the ball field. However you felt about that, the fact is the parents came out, and the town needs that. And I just loved hearing the fact that you're providing guidance to get your parents involved in the wider community, because there are things that the wider community can do, like the youth center. The backstory on that is I, and along with some other people, raised heaven and hell for 3 years to get that open, because we recognized that the middle school kids need that. And why did we recognize it? Because we listened to Safe Harbor, and they said the middle school kids need that. The high school kids have some judgment. You have high school kids, you may disagree with me, but the middle school kids are vulnerable. So anyway, I just wanted to, and it's also nice to see what you guys are doing. Very impressed. But if you have ideas for the kids that can be helpful, I would love to hear, because there are things that we can do on the town level, on recreation, after school, right? And you are so well positioned to give us the type of information, that we need. Like, for instance, there's an initiative to create more ball fields, more playing fields. That's badly needed, and it's been ignored for 10 years. It was 10 years ago, everybody knew that we needed it. So I just wanted to stop by and let you know, and I'll leave some of my cards here if you want my phone number. I do return calls, but some people wish that I wouldn't.
No, Jack,
Well,
you're
thank
great.
you.
No,
Thanks, Jack. Great.
Thank you.
And thank you, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It is so rare that people who do what you do, the hours that you spend, thank you, and you don't get thanks. So you're getting a big thank you.
You as well, thank
And
you.
I'll leave on that. And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks for coming
much.
by, Jack. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for attending.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you're doing an excellent.
Oh, thanks a lot.
That was his one comment?
That's
That was
right.
fun.
Yeah.
If you'd like to go home and sign on to Zoom, you'll have to.
So Principal Mills, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right.
Great job.
So if you guys, did you say you're gonna vote on all of them?
Yeah.
We're about to do that right now.
All right.
Okay, so is there a motion on the floor to approve all 4 school improvement plans as presented
So moved.
last meeting and at this meeting?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Cleary. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. St. Ange. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion
All
clear.
right. Thanks, John.
Thank you,
Thank
Principal
you,
Mills.
Principal Mills.
Great. Awesome.
Okay,
That was great.
Nice.
moving on, Dr. Sullivan.
We got a musical, now we got some good reports,
Real
right?
multifaceted meeting.
Well, I don't know if it's all downhill from here, but.
No,
No, what's
no,
on this?
right?
Oh, it can't
So
be.
I would like to.
Finance.
For the committee's consideration, I would like to bring up
sorry, yeah.
a recommendation
Oh, it's new?
regarding our masking policy timeline at the middle school. And I want to kind of present that first with just giving some data as to where we are. So I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, it didn't share. Hold on. Doing so well. There we go. So as I said, I'm requesting a vote if you see so fit to do so, Chairman McClellan. But what I'm recommending is that we delay permission for vaccinated individuals at the middle school to unmask until January 18th, 2022. As you may know, January 1st is what we have on our books right now, which would equate to January 3rd being our first day, but coming right after break.
It's 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, so it's 2 week period, and just to kind of remind folks of what our timeline has been for the middle and the high school, DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, granted approval for the high school and middle school, which we know they're looking at as one physical building, to lift the mask mandate requirement for fully vaccinated students back in November 30th. And on Monday, we, December 6th, so that's 2 weeks ago, last week, I should say, the masking requirement has been lifted for fully vaccinated individuals at CHS only, and this is by school committee approval. Unvaccinated individuals are still required to continue to wear masks in accordance with DESE guidelines. That's what we're living right now at the high school. And at this time, all middle school students and staff continue to wear masks until January 1st. That's what we have on the books. So that is where we are. And again, I'm requesting the permission to push it back just a bit. Just want to go over some numbers. This just gives you sort of a broad scale of where the numbers have gone over time. You can see this is back from the beginning of the pandemic back in March of 20, and then moving into where we are now. And you can see, with the new variants that our numbers have climbed, and it only goes as far as November. It doesn't get into December because those numbers are not complete yet, but you get a sense for it. And you all have this presentation, so I gave it to you earlier just so you could look at it to really, study the numbers as we move. And this is week by week. I broke it down week by week in the town. Remember, every 2 weeks, mass.gov I'm able to access it on mass.gov, provides a 2 week case count for each local municipality. And what I did is I divided it and just broke it down by week. So you can see we had, the December 9th week was a large week for us as a town.
A town, right?
Right. That's a town. Here's the schools, and you can see coming off of Thanksgiving, we went up. We had our largest week by far on the week ending 12/3, and that was all coming off of the break, which isn't that surprising. And you can also see where the numbers are distributed. They're distributed with the younger students, the lower vaccinated population, and that is coming off of the break. And you can see we were a little cooler last week, and now we've bumped up a little bit. You can see our numbers remain very low at the middle and high school, and that's been great because we've been able to keep folks in school. We've only instituted test and stay a couple of times. We did it that one time that we talked about prominently here, and then we had one other time coming off a break where we had a couple of days at Deer Hill for a couple of students. And now we could potentially I put the high school number there because that was today, we were informed, but it's not an official case yet. But I put it on here because it typically are when they're home tests official. There've been a few we've reversed, but I put it on there. That did result in a couple of test and stays. But that's not that shocking because again, we're not spacing at the high school, and when we are at the other buildings. So our eligibility for, or I should say our percent of eligible Cohasset residents who are fully vaccinated is now up to 89%. It's very high. This is as of the 9th of December, and partially vaccinated at 15. That's a wonderful statistic for us in terms of our ability to potentially allow students to unmask because of the DESE mandate of the 80%. Remember, that's what we're working under in order to provide that for students. The vaccination attestation and what we have for our students and staff at the middle school. This is just the middle school. okay? Remember, the high school is much higher. It's climbing. It's not yet at 80. Remember, if we were allowed to look at our middle school and high school separately, we actually would not be able to unmask our middle school yet. I believe that by the 18th, we would be there. We're very close right now. I'm not sure we'll be there by the 1st. So I just want to bring that to your attention as well. Because one of the things about being able to unmask is it's a product of having a high vaccination rate, where we're able to separate our two buildings, which is what I was advocating for. We just want to make sure that if we're unmasking a population that is highly vaccinated and does fit that calculation, even though the fact that we're in one building and we have a very highly vaccinated high school brings up the numbers above 80. I want that to be in your consideration as we move forward. So just some rationale for moving the unmasking date back just a bit. As you can see from that data, waiting 2 weeks after winter breaks allows us the opportunity to view infection rates in our community and in the middle school population, which still has a lower vaccination rate, sorry about the error there, than our high school community, before allowing vaccinated individuals to unmask. Waiting 2 weeks after winter break allows younger middle school students who may not yet be fully vaccinated, but whose families want them to be fully vaccinated, the opportunity to have more time to reach full vaccination before allowing vaccinated individuals to unmask. So the idea is that we'd really allow those students to be able to be fully vaccinated. I think there's going to be a lot who are, just getting their second shot in the next couple of weeks, and who will be after break. If you give it another week or two, will be fully vaccinated. Because remember, you technically have to wait the 2 weeks to be considered fully vaccinated after your second shot. So also just keep in mind that these rules are happening now at the high school, and they will continue no matter where we are. But vaccinated or unvaccinated individuals still have to wear masks on the bus. That's a federal mandate, in the nurses' offices, in our shared learning commons. And masking for athletics are following the MIA guidelines, which right now says they need to wear masks when indoors. We'll watch for updates on that. And right now we are any visitor who comes in. Some big reminders about masking, and it was nice to hear Jake's perspective about masks and the way people are treating each other in regards to that. This is a paramount this is really important for all of us, that we are making sure that we're preaching everything that we can about keeping that idea of not pigeonholing or discriminating against any student for their choice or their requirement, whatever it may be, about masking. And what I'm hearing happening at the high school from staff, from the administrators, and from the students, and I met with my student advisory council, talked to all of them with Dr. Scollins about this. I feel very good about the way we're approaching it right now, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows how very important that is, that masking does not necessarily match your vaccination status. Anybody can wear a mask at any time. And they can, if they're vaccinated, they may choose to wear a mask in a particular circumstance. I think, Mr. Kearney, you referenced this at a previous meeting, and they may choose to not wear it. And that's their choice. But no one should feel, I know other members have talked about this, that, that we're discriminating against anybody for wearing a mask. And then keep in mind that, as your child becomes vaccinated, to please inform your child's nurse. I would recommend an email, and then they'll guide you through what you need to do in terms of any formal attestation. That's an important thing. But DESE reserves the right to reinstate the department's mask mandate based on state and local information. I just want everyone to know that it's not like they've let us go willy-nilly. They're watching the rates, they're watching Omicron, they're watching the Delta variant, and they're looking at if there might be a situation where they would ever have to reverse it. So I just wanted to put that out there for everybody. And that's it. But I thought, as the superintendent of schools, I always feel it's important when I feel that something is worth us taking a look at again. And based on our experiences coming off of Thanksgiving and based on the data that I just presented to you, my recommendation would be waiting to unmask our vaccinated middle school students until the 18th of January.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan, for the well thought out presentation. So I did say at the beginning of the meeting that if anyone had any masking comments, to wait until we got to this point in the agenda. So I do want to invite anyone that's watching that might have a masking comment, or that's here that might have a masking comment, as I suspected, to please do so now. So that, because if we are making a decision, I think it's helpful to hear from everyone about thoughts in general. Mrs. Sylvia, can you just come and state your name and your address, please?
Hi, I'm April Sylvia, 40 Fair Oaks Lane. Thanks so much, first of all of you, for all of your time on all the committee meetings and everything. I appreciate it. I know the focus has been on the high school and the middle school, unmasking them, unmasking the vaccinated. But I just wanted to kind of get in front of, I have elementary age school kids, and I just kind of wanted to get in front of, let you guys know and let the public know some things that my children have been hearing at school, at the elementary school. So I just wanted to, one particular comment that was very concerning was my child came home from school and said, Mom, someone told me at school today that I better get vaccinated or else we're all gonna be wearing masks forever. Okay. This was about a month ago, and then another, like a week or two ago, my child came home again and said, Mom, I overheard other kids telling other kids, everyone better get vaccinated or the whole school is going to be in mask forever. He's like, so I guess after the second time, he told me that I think it's important that, school administrations and parents need to know that these conversations are happening at the elementary age, school. So I know, it was, I agree hearing Jake say, oh, everyone's, high school, everyone's respectful, but everyone's comfortable. But I'm wondering, if you heard from the kids that are still wearing their masks because they have to, they're not choosing to, are they comfortable? I don't think maybe it's important to hear from them, hear how they're feeling. Because I just feel like we need to hear, we need to really know what's going on, behind the scenes, like how these kids are feeling. Are they feeling discriminated or are they feeling segregated? I don't know, but I feel like I needed to put it out there and get it in front of you guys that these conversations are, I'm hearing it straight from, my child. So, and I thank you for, taking that into consideration and looking at all the kids on all sides.
Yeah, and that point's been brought up. And I would say we're definitely monitoring that because I brought it up at a meeting as well. And that was one of my concerns was because although I am seeing some positive, I went to a soccer banquet and there was some girls wearing them and it was it's all right. It's all right to wear them. I think that's got to be kind of the message as well because you go into Whole Foods, I would make this analogy, you go into Whole Foods and you see somebody with a mask on, you're not saying, hey, that person's not vaccinated. But you just feel like and I've seen it with younger kids. Like I was telling a story where I was coaching flag football and the sixth grader said to another sixth grader that was wearing a mask, why are you wearing that mask? As he was running by. And it was a whole, so there is that. I don't know. Do you have any suggestions?
No, and I feel like, I go to the grocery store. I'm not judging someone that's wearing, I'm not saying, oh, they're unvaccinated, wearing it. But I think we're missing the point of thinking like, we're worried all the social emotional work everyone's doing. How are these kids really feeling? And the ones that they don't want to wear it, they're going to be forced to wear it if they're not vaccinated for whatever reason. They can't be, they haven't had time, they don't want to, and are they comfortable? I mean, they don't want to wear them. I mean, I don't know, maybe they do, but we have to look at the sides of, them not wanting to and having to when everyone else, or the ones that are vaccinated don't have to. So I think it's more that than what people think. you know, that's how they're feeling and how they're gonna have to deal with it once it happens, because it is trickling down, obviously. Or how the high schoolers that are still wearing them because they have to. So I guess that's, you know.
And I think it's important to think about that. I mean, it's a really good point because I have heard, you know, elementary kids saying things. I mean, they're also, they're we have to think about the age of the kids, right? They're elementary kids. And so the high schoolers may not, and it's a good point to actually ask the kids that are still masked in the high school what their perspective is. And frankly, I have no idea if Jake is or not. But I suspect that Principal Scott is well attuned to that and he's got his finger to the pulse of that. But it's a really good point. But the age of the elementary kids are at issue. I mean, you know, it's one thing to say, and because I agree with you, Mr. Kearney, I the same thing in the grocery store, you know, or whatever. You know, you see someone masked, I don't even think twice about it. But you know, you're 32 years old, and
Oh, thank you.
you're not an elementary school student. So I you know, and if you're a third grader or something like that, we all remember being in third grade and saying dumb things or being insensitive or not even understanding the issue, right? And being insensitive. So that's one side of it. So I think it's a really salient point, in Ms. Sylvia, in that there's probably a major difference between how it's approached, just from a developmental standpoint, but also they're all still masked. So right now, so there's that sort of like there's the fiction that this made up lie that if everyone doesn't get vaccinated they're going to have masks forever, but that will be dispelled in the fairly near future, relatively near future. When they don't all have masks on now, though, in school, like, will that cause elementary students to sort of be unkind to one another in any way or be judgy because they're not as mature socially? And will it cause it? I don't know. It's yet to be seen. And you don't. Someone said to me earlier today, you don't make policy based on the fact that people will be bad or will do the wrong thing. But it's yet to be seen what will happen, but it's good to be thinking about that in advance, I think. But I think again, it's a very reasonable concern to have when the kids are much younger. You don't know how, because I've heard the same things. It's been said, right? So yeah, I think the principals in the elementary levels are probably also, just as Principal Scott would be. I think they're well attuned to that as well. And will continue to be. I know the superintendent and assistant superintendent are certainly putting pressure on everyone to be aware of that, and we're trying to develop strategies to deal with it.
It's a time for empathy, understanding, and really looking at the situation we're all in. And we're all in a situation that we've been given a certain set of rules to be able to unmask individuals, and a certain set of individuals we can unmask. So the committee has, the choice to allow that to happen and make sure that we're empathetic and working hard to create the condition that at least supports everyone as much as we can support everyone, or to continue to have masks on everyone and create that equity from that perspective. So it is it's absolutely important that we promote that empathy and understanding approach and don't try to squash that. But those are really the choices at hand for us right now.
And, just as you did, I want to invite every parent, or family member or guardian or older sibling, whoever it might be, to make us all aware of things that are being said, especially if they are, the comments we've heard so far, again, are sort of, speculative, have a certain amount of conjecture attached to them, but eventually it may get unkind or insensitive, and that is where it will, maybe cause some more, significant damage, and we want to avoid that. So, everyone, I think this is something that everyone needs to join in this effort, and I think that extends to the adult role models in the children's lives. So remember that we have small parrots living in our house, and that we're going to repeat things that are heard and perspectives that are taken on things. And so if the adults are maintaining perspectives, because it's a community at large problem, right? I mean, any polarizing issue, people are going to have different opinions on. And you wear masks, I don't wear masks. Any difference amongst human beings are sometimes approached fairly I don't know, insensitively sometimes, so just be cognizant of that too. And I think that could help too, sort of setting a good example at the home. Not to say anyone's not, I'm just, I think that, you need to be cognizant of it. So,
Well, remember, this is social emotional learning. It's part of it is being self-aware and being able to manage your own emotions and your own, what you say. And so this fits right in with that. It's something that we're really working on. And this is a perfect example to use those skills, so.
and also seeking help. If you're feeling pressured, to seek out an adult or someone that forms a support system for you, let them know.
Self-management.
That things are happening. So, point well taken, Mrs. Sylvia.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for listening.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I'd just like to have one
Sure.
point on this, just to build on that, and Dr. Sell, this, you have trickled this down through the administration, but I don't think we can underscore it enough, because this is a weird thing. It's this weird wedge issue that people feel strongly about for many different reasons. And, we would never allow someone to say, for someone who could not get vaccinated, for people to say, oh, you're not good, or you're going to be shunned. People are worried about that. And we would never allow someone who had any sort of other medical issue. We would have a zero tolerance policy if they were trying to treat anyone different because they had a max on it because they weren't vaccinated. I want to make sure that that's just absolutely crystal clear from the top all the way down to like the pre-K kids. I mean, that's part of our school, is that we are an inclusive environment, and we're working hard to build that. And I've heard from parents some anxiety, some parents who are either choosing not to have their children vaccinated at this point yet, or for genetic reasons have very serious health concerns that they think they can't do it, or they're advised not to do it. And they're worried that those children will be treated differently, either by staff, because teachers will look at them in different ways, by not I don't want to call it nurses in particular, but they are the ones with the health information, or by their peers. So, if you could, keep that message upfront and let us know if it's not working, because if it isn't working, then we need to find a different way to have an equitable environment. I don't think we should have masks be the new way we treat each other different. And if people are going to treat each other different because of masks, then everyone wears masks, is my view. It needs to be an inclusive environment for our kids.
I think it's absolutely crucial. And I would really encourage anyone to reach out to building administration, to me, to Dr. Scollins, to anyone in our leadership team that you feel, would be able to help you. We all will. So, I echo what you said.
Great.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor to,
Comments.
yes, absolutely.
One is from Jenna Cunningham, 15 Hill Street. We had a very large case number this past week in a very highly vaccinated town, more than double the number of cases for the same week in December 2020 when no vaccine was available. Do you know the number of vaccinated cases in the overall town versus unvaccinated for the past week?
I do
Still
not.
do not have that data.
I wouldn't be
So I
necessarily.
think that maybe the public health officials in town
Yes, and Mrs.
may or
Cunningham,
may not, I don't know.
She
but
is
they
asking
may.
them, so she's
Okay.
directed that inquiry to other avenues too. I think she was just checking in to see if
Okay.
we had gained that information. We don't have that.
No, I'm not necessarily provided with
No,
that.
right.
Maura Shari did not say the address, so if you could please also put your address into the comments or the Q&A.
She's Atlanta. I don't know.
Since there are breakthrough cases, full vaccination really happens when you get the booster, which is not available for kids under 16. When would we revisit mask wearing on high school kids?
Well, I would just correct a little bit of that. I understand that sentiment, but that is not actually the definition of full vaccination.
Thank you. 15 Virginia Lane.
Full vaccination is 2 shots of Pfizer, 2 shots of Moderna, or 1 shot of Johnson & Johnson, Janssen. It's not, and then there's a time period after them that you have to, I believe it's 2 weeks. So it actually isn't the definition of fully vaccinated to have a booster. I appreciate the comment, though. Like I've said several times, from my viewpoint, I'm looking at the data I just presented. We're looking at the state data, the local data, and then, of course, the school data. and we need to look at a couple things in school. It's how many kids are in a particular school, masked or unmasked, are getting the virus. And then do we have any indication that it's being transmitted in school because of someone being defined as a close contact to that individual? And we are still contact tracing with any case we do get in our unmasked high school, just as we are in every building. So those would be my guides. The state has not issued a metric. And from my viewpoint, I think we need to determine when, amongst us, I don't think we need to necessarily establish a metric, like a objective metric, but I think we have to keep it in our conversations, keep looking at it. And that's why I feel me sharing the data at these meetings and being very transparent with the data for hopefully people feel that way with the community is crucial. So we can make sure we're all on top of it and we can add our voices when it's appropriate to do so. But the committee may have other thoughts on this question, but that's just my thought.
Maura also commented some are changing that call. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that we really are bound by Department of Public Health and DESE definitions, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the fully vaccinated, to my knowledge, neither CDC or DESE have changed their definition of fully vaccinated. Certainly right now we're moving under DESE and the Department of Health, who worked in conjunction to create the ability for the 80% vaccination schools to unmask those who are vaccinated. And what vaccinated in that context still means is 2 shots of Pfizer, 2 shots of Moderna, or 1 shot of Johnson.
I guess a direct answer to the question might be, if we got a revised definition from DESE or from Department of Public Health, that's where we would consider changing the policy
Yeah,
or
and
direction.
maybe if data were concerning enough for us to have another conversation, I think that's in our purview, right?
I think we need to continually have this conversation.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
Talk about this every single time. So
I know, I'm just saying, I
Also,
think that's
boosters were
crucial. I
just
think
moved down to
I really
younger people,
appreciate
just
Maura's
FYI.
comment, because that we do have to
Yeah.
continue to keep it right here.
Yeah, I just like to say that we're lucky to have leadership that brings this to our attention. So for you guys to be proactive is awesome.
Well,
So-
I think we need to, because
Yeah,
it's such an
I
awesome
agree,
responsibility.
because, and, you know, and
We have to make it together.
And I think it just shows our leadership's, I think it shows that you guys are proactive, and that's the way to be. And I think that serves the community well. I think it serves the teachers well. I think it serves the students well. And especially if you look at the data that says that we're going to come back from Christmas vacation, for 2 weeks, let's slow it down and try to slow the spread down. And I don't like them. I'll be honest with you. I don't like masks, but I do agree with you guys.
No, I'm just kidding, I don't.
all right, we got more comments. Let's
Okay,
keep it
okay,
going.
We do? Okay.
Megan Barry, 11 Tad Lane. Is there any data around how many students have been required to quarantine due to a positive test or being a close contact on a weekly basis over the last few weeks?
So I don't have completely accurate data. I know that I was attempting to track that. It hasn't been, I'm going to give a very sort of global answer to this. The question is over the last few weeks. Our numbers went up as they did for positive cases right after the Thanksgiving break. And now they went down some in last week. And I believe it depends on the school we're talking about. We've had very, very few quarantines from outside exposure at the middle school and high school. Very few. More so at Deer Hill and at Osgood, but I don't have specific exact numbers on that. I found it a real challenge to track it, because what ends up happening is the folks who are quarantining stretch over into the next week, so it's hard to say week by week. What I was trying to offer was a snapshot. I still talk to my principals on Thursdays, but I thought that, and you remember the slide I used to show, thought that slide was becoming very misleading, because it wasn't necessarily talking about how many quarantines we had, it was talking about how many per week, which to me was the most important thing. So, yeah, it hasn't been overwhelming, but there have been some numbers that have gotten up into double digits barely at the elementary school week by week.
Jenna Cunningham, 15 Hill Street. You're treating kids differently. Some get to decide and a minority have no choice. That's discrimination. The community and safety is paramount. Why would we ignore the vaccinated child gets and transmits the virus just as the unvaccinated?
Well, I don't think we're ignoring that. I think what we're doing is following the rules set for us by DESE and the Department of Public Health. I'm not, personally, I don't feel we're treating anybody outside of the rules that we've been given. I mean, the rules we've been given is that if a school is 80% vaccinated, and we've talked about what that means now, that those who are vaccinated can unmask. Those that aren't need to wear masks. That's what we're following. There's no discrimination within that. We're following a set of guidelines that we decided to follow. Quite frankly, the school committee has the ability to, as Dial said, pull that back if they saw fit, and to make it so that everybody masks. Those are really the only two possibilities right now. So I don't feel it's a matter of discrimination, although I respect people's perspectives. Right now, we're just following the guidelines we have set for us.
And discrimination really denotes the differential treatment of a particular protected class of individuals based on the fact that they're a member of that class.
Yeah.
And at this moment in time, unvaccinated individuals aren't a protected class of people. We're dealing with a public health crisis. So rules have been made, which frankly trump in some cases, like just from my own experience, like due process, like constitutional rights, like due process. I mean, people have been in custody, they were in custody throughout the pandemic where court dates were being pushed off, trials couldn't happen because juries couldn't be impaneled. And it was expressly stated that the public health, public safety trumps those sort of considerations. Now, I don't think this comes anywhere close to someone's deprivation of someone's liberty, but I'm using an extreme example to sort of illustrate how sometimes certain considerations have been made in under extreme circumstances, in this particular case a public health crisis. But I understand what Mrs. Cunningham's saying from the perspective of you are treating people, excuse me?
Who's you?
Well, it's really Desi, but
That's what I want to be clear about.
she's talking to us because
But I
was trying to think of when I said you. I didn't know what I meant by you.
Well, that's why I'm answering the question.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, but to her point, I mean, yes, I understand we're not the rule makers, but the school districts, schools, everyone has the right to a public education.
Yeah.
And if we are treating different populations, I'm trying to basically interpret her, extract her position, her perspective from the question that she's asked. I'm not necessarily articulating my own perspective on this.
No, I know.
But I see where, the conclusion could be reached that, well, everyone has the right to this, and there are different groups being treated differently based on a choice that they're so-called free to make, but then one group is getting sort of penalized for that. Again, I mean, I think that, there have been rules by rulemaking authorities and entities that are not us, that are above, that exceed our authority, that have deemed this a compelling interest, and that's why these rules are in place. And I think I stated to Mrs. Cunningham privately, I'll state publicly, that I think that, DESE has moved slowly, sometimes ineffectively, but generally in the right direction that we want to be moving, right? And so, at first we weren't in school, then we were, half and half. Then we were totally in school. Then we were, masked and spaced. Now we're, starting to unmask, starting to reduce spacing. So things are slowly getting back to that realm of normal. Who knows when we'll get there? But I think you have to take that into consideration too. And I know people are getting impatient. I'm getting impatient with it as well. But I don't know. I just sort of wanted to recognize the merit of that perspective. although I don't totally share in it, I just did want to sort of articulate, I think, what her position sort of is, and that's that, you know.
I completely understood, and I hope Mrs. Cunningham understands. I was answering it based on the school's perspective of what kind of situation we've been, the cards we've been dealt and how we're dealing with it. I wasn't trying to minimize someone's feelings about being discriminated because they made a choice. I understand that.
Sure.
I completely understand.
And I wasn't inferring that you didn't understand.
I know, but I'm glad it gave me an opportunity to clear that up. Because
Sure.
I was really focusing on our purview and what we have for our, at our disposal for tools to make decisions.
Barb Steffen, 260 Jerusalem. Thank you for this thoughtful discussion and the proposal at hand. Cohasset, unlike some other towns, isn't having to go remote, so hooray. Great that our town has such high vaccination rates to help mitigate transmission. Vaccinated individuals transmit less virus for less time and serious illness. I think it's very sensible to delay the middle school unmasking policy after vacation and support Dr. Sullivan's recommendation.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, I think that's how we all feel.
This is Jenna Cunningham, her third comment.
Okay.
Various courts around the country are deciding in favor of families, arguing their 14th Amendment is being violated by schools following protocols that treat vaccinated and unvaccinated differently.
Well, we'll certainly continue to monitor DESI's guidance for us, because that's what we're bound to follow.
I think we had a full discussion there, an open discussion. So is there a motion on the floor to approve Dr. Sullivan's recommendation to delay the unmasking at middle school until January 18th?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Colery. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. St. Ange. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion clearly passes. Dr. Sullivan, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And please implement that.
Thank you.
Okay, does that conclude the superintendent's report?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Moving right into the finance report, we turn to our Director of Finance and Operations, Mrs. Susan Owen.
Thank you. Pat, you want me to share?
I can share.
If you have it. So I will be brief. It's not much changes month to month. We, through November, this budget report is through the November 30th. School department has expended about $6 million out of a $21 million budget, which puts us at 41%, which is right on target. We're 41% exactly through the school year or through the fiscal year. So budget is progressing right on point. We continue to encumber our supplies and materials. There's remaining balance of about $12 million right now, which we'll continue to use for our salaries and other unanticipated expenditures that are not on purchase orders. The big concern has been growing the sped tuitions, which each month has been creeping. So I know it was 75,000, then it was into 100, and now right now we budgeted 1.1. We've encumbered 1.2. We've spent 333,000, bringing us to a shortfall of about $426,000 in sped tuitions. Obviously, that is on my radar. Not unusual, but it is creeping higher than normal. So we will continue to watch that. It's basically due, the collaborative tuitions increased, our private school tuitions increased. We had one student that we brought in on a new placement, and we had not just one, but several go out of district into a collaborative placement, which is why the collaboratives went up. So Mrs. Swanker and I have been weekly meeting on tuitions, following IEP meetings and discussions to see, if there's a possibility of someone coming back or reducing tuitions. If someone moves from a residential to a day, that definitely drops it by $100,000. So, I mean, it's a fluid account. We won't really know where it lands until we get to the end of the year, because we can never guarantee if we're taking in new students or students that, for whatever reason need to be outplaced. But we're definitely looking at that. We also, just a reminder, we have the sped stabilization fund, which is exactly for things like this, unanticipated tuitions. I believe there's probably close to 400,000 in there now. We've maxed it out. I'm gonna reach out to the town accountant just to see what the process is, if we decide to, go that avenue, and if need be. Not at that point right now. Again, giving you the budgets by schools, just to give you an idea of where each school is, what their budgets are. Circuit breaker, hasn't changed any, but it's good to stay on our radar so we know what we have. The capital outlay for current year, went out to bid on the Deer Hill and the middle school air handlers. We have to rebid, we have to itemize and go back out. Bids came in at least $1 million more than what we budgeted through capital, so.
Except for what's that?
Wait, which one was that?
Yeah.
The air handlers,
The Deer Hill air handler and the middle school HVAC.
they have an item
Right,
up.
it says,
So it was like 175?
so we budgeted $750
Yeah.
and our bid, we had 3 prospective bidders. They all came in at 1.2, 1.4, 1.7. So we had to redirect all bids because we didn't have the appropriation. So facilities and I have been meeting and they're trying to figure out, we're gonna ask for an itemization from those bidders just to see, what the breakdown was, where the cost difference was. I know Nadine and
When we bid these things out, are they on from an approved list of vendors or can we go anywhere?
so there weren't, we didn't go with a list of approved vendors. There weren't really any on the list to do this type of job. So we had to go out to a full bid, which we put it out there. We have specs that we put in there.
Okay.
It goes on, combines, it goes in the newspaper, it's published bunches of places for contractors and stuff to look at. We had a walkthrough. We had 6 or 7 people come for the walkthrough, which was great. We had 3 people come to the bid.
Was your thought that if they're state approved, we would not maybe have to go through a bidding process?
No, the reason I ask is if I thought maybe we might know HVAC contractors that could come in that may not have known about
Oh,
the RFP? What would it?
IFB.
Yeah.
IFB.
Yeah.
Well, it's posted, it's advertised, and the facilities department, when I spoke to them, you typically, you do that, you send it to as many of the vendors that you know. He said he didn't know, our facility said he didn't know of any that would be interested in this type of job because it's complicated. There's stairs that have to be built to get to, I think, the air handlers at the middle high school. So we're working on it. They're gonna itemize it, they're gonna relook at it. It may be that we have to go back to the table and ask capital for more money. Facilities said it could be just the pricing of things, they were giving this by one of their vendors that does some type of work like this, but not quite to this extreme. So the engineers that did all the specs for us thought it would be in this ballpark. It was not anywhere near the ballpark.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So if we don't have the appropriation, we can't do it.
Right.
So it's kind of back to the drawing board.
Is there a potential this could be like one of those Eagle Scout projects that we?
The stairs could.
Yeah, the stairs definitely could. That's what jogged into my head. Maybe to ask the boys, I don't know.
That would be great.
Serving the
Couple
community, I think
spots
it
out
works.
there. Yeah.
Everything else on this year's capital is, progressing, the track and the turf, we know we're going out to bid in the spring. Dust collector, I believe, is done. Door fobs are gonna happen during December break. The remaining hydration stations is supposed to happen soon. Science lab, we have all the equipment, we're just waiting for some time to install. Pilot technology, some of the stuff has been ordered. The Chromebook lease and the school bus leases have all been completed. The next group is just a draft of what our requests are for next year. So we have the middle and high school paging. I'm not gonna read through all of them,
No, you
it's the same.
We can just say that we know that Mr. Kearney was right, that van's gonna cost some more money.
That van is gonna cost more money. The van did go up.
I think the van's gonna go up some more too.
Yeah, I don't,
Van went up. Van went up.
I give the van more money than that.
Yeah, we might want to start with a 6 on that van.
Yeah, I
All right, stay focused.
Sorry.
I'm losing.
Next page, please. So, my reports are growing as I think of things that would be of interest. This is a summary of our electric through October, only because our bills weren't paid yet. When I did this report, but this gives you an idea of where we were, from 19. So I gave you the cost of 19, the kilowatts, and then FY 20, FY 21, and then in yellow, it's FY 21 through October of last year, and then FY 22 through October of this year. So you can kind of see a comparison of where, what type of electricity we're using, how many kilowatts we're using, just kind of to follow the trend on, utilities and what they look like.
But will FY 21 be an aberration because of remote schooling?
Yes.
Okay.
20 could possibly be as well, as part of 20. I think it was
Yep.
from March on in 20, which is why I went back as far as 19 to kind of give us a flat year that we were here the whole time.
Yep.
Next page is the same thing. I did the same thing for the gas. Just,
It's a good idea, yeah.
areas that,
Gonna go up.
interest, we can watch whether things are going up or down. And then the next page is our grants. Nothing has changed in our grants. Obviously, we're expending them as we go. The ESSER 2 grant is, I believe, as of today, spent. Next page, Pat, please. There we go. So ESSER 2 says we had 7,000, that went into the warrant today, so that grant will be closed out. The other grants are obviously still ongoing. Our revolving accounts, same thing, nothing, no area of concern. Athletics has purchased some supplies, some field goals, some nets to try to spend down their revolving accounts. The food service department has purchased more than several LED screens for each school to put up messages and menus in the school cafeterias. She's also ordered a new serving line that we're revisiting with the vendor because we're going to extend the cafeteria into a smaller room off the cafeteria, so we can expand the area and possibly bring in some more offerings and route the students better, because right now there's only one way in, one way out. We're also looking at vending machines, which some quotes came in today. So, other than the sped tuitions that I'm watching and working with Mrs. Sawanka on, the budget is progressing as planned. Like I said, we're 41% through the year. The budget's at 41%, even though tuitions are over. Other departments are obviously under, which balances out. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Thank you, Ms. Owen. Any questions, Mrs. Valeri?
So are we gonna see the sped expenditures go up 150,000 a month now?
I hope not.
It looks
I hope
like
not.
that's
What's
where it's
happened over the
tracking.
last few months, students have been moving. Either
Yeah,
moving from day to residential or in-house to collaborative, or we've had several new students come in, which is, out of our control. Hopefully, it's gonna level out.
new students come in,
To the district.
Just moving.
but for that factors into special ed or no? You mean students are moving in general and that's an example of it?
No, if a child is, let's say a student moves into our district and has
I see.
an IEP that requires a program outside.
Outside
Students come from Situate.
I see. I thought you meant into the district
Into the school?
physically.
No.
You mean residential in
In a
Cohasset.
moving.
Got it. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we had one or two students, one I know of that came from Situate, moved into the district, who is on an IEP that does have special ed tuition, so.
Got it. Okay, so but it looked like it was like a
The
regular.
last, yes.
But it's not.
And that's not that uncommon in the first few months of the school year, when they're having their IEP meetings, students are getting settled in
Right.
districts.
And after a pandemic and all of it, yeah. I get it. I just wanted to know if it was because of the things that have happened, this is the extra expense every month. It's not that.
It's not gonna be like that every month.
Okay, okay. And then I just was wondering what happened to the middle high school paging zones? We just got an actual number rather than an estimate from the last one. It's up 50,000 from the last list.
Yes, is it up 50? I was waiting on a quote from Ron,
Yeah.
from IT.
Yeah.
I now have the quote.
Okay. And I'm wondering if the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee has gotten any information about the ceiling tiles. I just thought of it because I saw the ceiling tiles at the Osgood, about the Deer Hill. No?
What happened to the ceiling tile?
What's the
Well,
question?
there are like a bunch missing and a lot of stains on them in the cafeteria.
The cafeteria is tough.
The cafeteria. The Deer Hill.
The cafeteria. So that's on a capital list
To replace,
to replace them.
to all the ceiling tiles?
Yes,
Not all of them, but.
the ones that need to.
the
It
ones
is
that
on
need-
here?
Yes, it's on,
Yeah, we talked about it and then we
Good.
didn't tour, as you recall, Mr. Kearney.
Yeah.
We did
It's
not
halfway
tour
down.
because the
Halfway
capital.
down,
committee
No, no,
decided they
the
knew
Deer
what
Hill.
Ceiling tiles looks like.
Their
We did not need
ceiling
to
tile,
oh,
Deer Hill?
Deer
Deer
Hill.
Does Deer Hill have bad ceiling tiles too?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, so that I didn't know.
let's just tack that on.
Yeah, I'd say,
Osgood and Deer Hill ceiling.
yeah,
I
I'd
I
say,
don't know.
yeah, I'd say
I know
go through all the
that-
schools for that.
Facilities had said that he has some that he can replace, but he doesn't have like full classrooms,
Right.
which is what the Osgood is looking towards.
Yeah, I remember that from.
Yeah, I'd
last time.
say there's like 10 ceiling tiles not there and then another 10 that are stained and
Yeah,
gross.
let's
I
make
think
sure we
there's
have all the
ongoing
ceiling
water
tiles.
infiltration, and even if we replace them, they'll just get ruined again. So I think that the water infiltration issue needs to be addressed, and I don't think that's been adequately resolved yet.
No, we need
Yeah.
new roofs.
Well-
That's a very good point.
With
Yeah.
solar.
I mean, no, that's a good point. I mean, if the
Yeah.
handle is leaking,
Right.
it's gonna.
Okay,
keep-
well, anyway, I'm just saying there's holes in the ceiling and dirty
Oh, good,
tiles
thank you.
at the Deer
I
Hill.
will,
Okay.
I will talk to facilities
Is it
about it.
Well, I was thinking too, like,
Hold on, Mr. Kearney.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were talking ceiling tiles. Like,
Oh, all right.
I don't wanna-
All right, okay. So I thought you were something else up.
No, I have a whole thing.
I know. That's why I was saying.
You know, I want to respect Ashley's wishes on the ceiling tiles and
All right.
get addressed
Anything
because.
else, Ash?
No,
That
thank
is-
you.
Okay,
Sorry, Mr. Dial.
Mr. Dodd.
I'm still on the ceiling tiles. So, is it because the air handlers are leaking, that there's water infiltration, leaks, and that's causing the ceiling tiles to get removed?
I honestly don't have that answer for you.
Okay.
I can assume that would be a
Can
great.
we find out if it's?
I wasn't aware there were that many ceiling tiles.
I didn't think there was
Yeah.
either, Deer Hill, because she.
Okay, so maybe listen,
No, no,
all I
you're
can tell
right.
you is I looked
Even
up at
a
the
handful
ceiling
of
and there
grody
was a
ceiling
whole
tiles.
row.
That's
All of them
There
are
and the
the ones
ones
that
That's what we,
Yes.
well, we could replace the ceiling tiles.
mildewy.
You have
This-
no ceiling tiles.
This will be my hill.
We'll put 'em-
Ceiling tiles.
Do it.
Right.
Okay. Kidding.
I also think it's simple too, like, just ask the teachers if there's any disdain ceiling tiles in your
This is low
classroom.
fruit, and
Just let us know.
It does not reflect pride in your school if you have ceiling tiles that are missing. I don't want us to replace ceiling tiles every week because if there's like, water pouring out,
Right.
that's a different issue, but let's just
No, I'll
replace
check,
the
I'll
ceiling
check
tiles.
with
Yeah, I
facilities
know,
and find out.
of course.
All right, they're on the
We
list.
have done that.
Okay,
Moving on.
we've
Anything
got
else,
that.
Mr. Dial?
Just very quickly on the special ed tuitions, what happens, what is the process? Maybe there's a conversation for another time, so don't feel free to defer. But if that goes over and then we go over budget, what is the process to rein that in? Or is there, I guess, what happens at that point?
It depends how over it goes. So it's a bottom, we function on a bottom line budget. So as long as we don't exceed our bottom line, what happens in between
Yep.
can be, we can adjust, we can transfer funds
Yep.
between accounts. If we obviously go over, that's where that sped stabilization fund would definitely we'd have to request.
Right, because what I was looking at, we're 426 over and then we're right on target budget. That seems fine. But if this continues, and this was kind of, I'm glad Ms. Clear raised the question about, does it continue to increase? But if this doesn't continue to increase, then it starts to worry that we go over budget and then then what happens?
Right.
Are there, and that's the sped stabilization fund?
Sped stabilization. I have honestly, in 25 years, I don't think I've ever seen a budget run over.
Okay,
I don't want
Well-
to stop.
Geez, you better find some real
I
wood.
haven't. I mean, because See, we're on target at 41%, even though we're way over
Yeah,
in special ed, because a lot of the other departments have not exhausted their budget or
Right.
not, are overusing their budgets, or a lot of it can be
well, it sounds like you've got
salaries.
lots of levers to pull, so
You know,
but just,
It's just in salaries. I mean, we budget for salaries at that snapshot of who we have at the time. If we had people leave, we've had several people go out on leave of absences. We end up hiring long-term subs, which is
Yep.
a quarter of the price. I mean, it's much, much cheaper. So it's a very fluid. And usually the bottom line, even in Cohasset, as far as I know, we've always given money back.
Okay. Good. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Mr. Kearney.
Hi, could we pull that, what's going on, with the capital outlay?
I want to pull this.
Can you put that back up on the screen?
Geez.
Page 2 of the presentation.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's gonna take me a
In the
second.
meantime, what about a generator? So I have this vision of Dr. Sullivan putting all this food in his car and
Driving in the minivan.
driving
home.
in the van and just piling it all up.
Yes,
And
so-
Is that something we can take care of? Like, I think,
So I actually talked to facilities today because I've been waiting for a quote. Because it was discussed that food service revenue could possibly fund a generator for the Osgood. It's like $270,000. So when I talked to facilities.
one
today-
refrigerator?
No. This was a
For
generator.
the whole school? Okay, so we'd have school.
Gave me today, and I said that absolutely, she can't fund that. That would decimate the program.
Right.
So I asked him to go back and find something to run just our refrigerators and
Right.
freezers.
Right.
And he said he was gonna go back and see how many spots there were.
Okay.
Pardon my.
Yeah, no,
Spots, how many
Yeah.
circuit spots there are left on, they have a borrowed generator over there outside. If they could just connect to that. So that actually happened this morning.
Now we working with, eventually having our own generator from the solar.
Electric school bus.
Yeah, we're on
All
that.
right.
But in the meantime, I don't think it'd be that pricey.
Except while I was driving the kid.
Price.
Portable one, I think.
A portable
fine.
one, just like it's.
Just to run the kitchen.
Just to run the kitchen during
Yes.
that
Yeah,
time. So it's needed. So,
That is the plan.
okay, so if we could add that to that, that would be good because.
Well,
I
It's
feel like-
not coming from capital
It's
though,
it's not coming from
from
capital.
the revolving.
It's coming from the food service
service
department.
So we already
Yeah,
have that plan.
Okay, and I'm glad we brought that up too. Like with the food services, I would like to see some direction of where you guys are going with that. Like, I feel like, yeah, we're doing this and we're doing that. Like, I think that we'd like to be more part of the
Is that a
conversation.
separate agenda item tonight?
Mr. Kearney, at your request, I put that on the next section.
Oh, yeah, I do
Right
see
here.
that. Yeah, okay, so I'll leave that to that. That's fine. That's
Close, the
fine.
segue is very close.
Yeah, it is
Almost
very
there.
close. Okay,
Almost
so we're almost there. It's important. This stuff is important. I was glad to see that we are going to replace all the water stations, so that is going to be.
There's only a couple, there are only a couple left. I thought they were all done. It was in that one back hallway, right?
If you saw them on our walk.
I was also saying, like, yeah, and this is definitely a safety/legal issue. The student stairway going down at the school from the student parking lot. I mean,
Lighting.
Exterior light.
yeah, to put a lighting out there, there's also like, as far as, like, it's just simple as a solar light. So when you actually, we all have them in our house, I don't know, I have them at my house that during the day, it solar's lights and then it goes on. So that might be a simple temporary solution. It wouldn't really.
Be helpful during athletic contact.
Yeah, so you walk in,
things
there's
where
two
people-
lights, they're about, and I don't mind donating.
Kearney, I'll do that with you. Let's go to Lowe's.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're gonna get some leaf blowers while we're there. And that's another thing we talked about, and maybe I bring that up and.
They did.
They actually did in front
They
of
did
in front of
that.
the
It was almost like they were
What?
reading your mind. as
They
you
leaf
said
blow
it.
it?
Yeah, they
Oh,
did.
come on, all right. Well, that's good, then I'm done. I'll wait for food
On that note.
services. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Kearney.
It's a good
Sit down.
point.
My question is budget
Yeah.
adjacent, and it's in regards to the survey we discussed last time that we'd requested be filled out so that electric buses could be discussed. Did you receive that?
Yeah, I sent it back to her.
Oh, okay.
I sent it back that next day.
You did?
Yes.
To the company?
I don't know exactly whoever sent me the email. I think it was.
Tanya?
Tanya.
Oh, I had just
And
met
I
with
sent it
her
right
a
back to
couple
her.
times after that. And she said, what's the status on the survey? So I met with
Oh, no, I sent it.
her
I
at the
can-
AEC meeting and then I got a follow-up email more recently and I thought,
I sent it back to her.
There is a
did you
comment.
resend and CC me?
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You're
Thank
so
you, Mr.
efficient,
Hunt.
Sue, I feel like.
I don't have any questions, Ms. Owen, so perhaps we can move on to the draft budget worksheet.
Yes, we can.
So you have to join Zoom to show that, because I don't have that draft worksheet.
Oh,
You join Zoom and then I can make you a co-host.
Zoom.
Unless you're on Zoom.
Should also email it to you right now.
That's what I was
I'm gonna
feverishly
do-
trying to figure out,
I'm gonna
Sue, as
email
you
it.
were
I'm gonna email it.
presenting. That's why I was following behind.
Just easy, email it to you.
Email it to me? That's fine.
No, let's do it, yeah.
All right, we have one comment from Kristen Quinn, 219 Sawyer. Well, it's actually a few comments in a comment. First comment, the band concert outside at Deer Hill was excellent, and I appreciate the creativity that went into having it. Second question, wondering what the rules are for sports at the schools after hours. My son is required to wear a mask in basketball, assuming because of the DESE public building policy. Anecdotally, he is not required to do this in any of the other basketball, soccer, or baseball leagues he attends during the week. Recently, an entire team at Deer Hill was quarantined for 10 days because they were deemed close contacts. Are masks not being considered in this decision? Wondering why the kids need to wear masks while they sprint if they would then have to quarantine anyway out of caution. Trying to understand if there is a difference in the school quarantine test and stay and mask policy versus the sports at school policy. Thank you.
So there's a few things in there. I guess, well, just to take the thought, thank you. I thought the Deer Hill.
Start there.
And then secondly, about the quarantining for, well, wearing masks in, right now, yes. Any visitor, any sports team, and of course, the ages that Mrs. Quinn is referencing are younger ages anyway, have to wear masks. My own son plays basketball. We live in a neighboring town, but he has to wear masks at all his practices in the town that I live in when they're in public schools. And in every, we only play in public school gymnasiums.
Right, we play at Starland, they don't have masks.
Yep, he's a
So-
fifth grader,
so
so it
there
is, so to her point, yes.
Yeah.
It's part of the DESE mask mandate, all public schools.
Public schools. However,
need to
if it
do it.
is like Starland, I was surprised there was no masks.
So I haven't had the experience,
Yeah,
but I'm
but
sure
that's-
that's
I'm a
possible.
coach,
And then
yeah.
as far as the quarantining decision goes, remember, there's also test and stay mentioned in this email, and we can't use test and stay. Not that Mrs. Quinn was saying we did, but I just want to be clear. Was reiterated once again by the commissioner on his call today with superintendents that we cannot use test and stay for outside exposure. And that we also cannot use test and stay on vaccinated individuals. So I just want to be clear with that. It's only for in-school exposure.
That's crazy.
Does sport, and this is a kind of
Say.
metaphysical question. If you're on a school sports team, does that count as in-school exposure?
Yes.
It does.
It's
So,
extracurricular. But this is extracurricular.
Oh, this is
It's just
extracurricular.
at the Deer
So
Hill.
I believe Mrs. Quinn is talking about,
so if it was a school sports team, okay,
that's sports.
you can use test and stay. But if you're doing the exact same thing, but for a non-school thing,
Because it's only exposure within school now. School sports is considered a school.
yeah,
Connected activity.
yeah. It's just like,
Outside activities where they're not necessarily governed by the rules that we follow.
Yep.
Now, the other question in there is about, it sounds like, why was the whole team quarantined? I can't answer that.
No.
That's a very.
It sounds like it was an extra-
Question, and I respectfully I just don't know what the decision process was around that. There's some confidentiality in that wouldn't necessarily make me purview to it, to the situation. So I'm respectfully, I just don't know.
But it wasn't the superintendent's school's decision.
It had nothing to do with me, no,
No.
it's a question that it was made, the decision was made by our public health authorities, and that would have to be, the question would have to be
And it sounds like that,
It's not.
and this may be because I've heard about this as well. It sounds like this, had this been a school sport team, we may have had a different result than if it was a extracurricular sporting team, because the test and stay would have been available. You would have had the, in-school contact process. So that's a interesting.
Well, remember, if they're vaccinated by death rules, they don't have to quarantine anyway. So there you go. So it would have been for unvaccinated individuals who were exposed potentially to a positive individual within a school setting, which also includes a sporting event.
Okay,
Great.
moving on. Ms. Owen, can you present us
Yes, I
the
sent
initial
that to you.
preliminary run-through here of the FY '23 draft
So I
budget?
can, I just sent it to Pat.
One moment.
This is a very rough preliminary draft. We've met with all the department heads, we've met with the principals, Dr. Sullivan, Dr. Scollins and I, Mr. Walker. We're still drilling down to our budgets. But just ballpark, if you look at the first item, the 942,000 is our basic rollover from 22 to 23. That's steps, lanes, longevity stipends, that's all the contractual obligations that we have to have. So that's just very quick. Everybody moved their step. That's what we're looking at.
The increase.
Could be lower, could be higher.
It
but
could be
that's-
lower,
this
could
is
be
a-
higher. Like I said, it's very preliminary. We had an increase in circuit breaker funding, so it shows as a minus because we have 53,000 more dollars to subsidize our budget with. The $215,000 is the increase in sped tuitions. I know I just looked at something else that said 400 and something. Some of our children are graduating out. So some of the tuitions are going away. So this is what the anticipated increase is to tuitions. The 180,000 is the projected retirement savings that we usually put in there. We know of several longstanding teachers that are retiring that are at the higher end of the salary scale. And that's where we claim the retirement savings because we potentially could hire in some newer, freshly out of school teachers who are much lower on the salary scale. Then we get into our requests. So, this is the collaboration of the whole district, the department heads, everyone. So just because of the enrollment at Osgood, there's a request for a grade 2 teacher because grade 1 right now is large, so grade 2 is next year going to be large. There is the infamous $60,000 for the math specialist at middle school that we've obviously been talking about for a while, and most of our circles. Continue to reduce the full decade tuition fees, $25,000, which is what last year I asked for 50. We brought it down to 25. It lowered everyone's tuition by about $200. So unless we do a one-time request of about $650,000, this is the only way we're going to get that tuition down. And then there's a request for a 1.0 computer science teacher at the middle school as they grow the program there. And then the $150,000 and increase the supplies materials. That's between the principals and all the department heads and what they were asking for, whether it be textbooks, support, it could be anything, a printer, film. We're going back and going through all of those budgets again and asking them, to really prioritize what is a necessity and what, if we have to cut, what could they cut to reduce that number. So the bottom number is, if you can just go down a little bit. We're looking for a 5.91% increase right now. This past year, we started out at 2 point, we shouldn't say it. This past year, we started probably in the same ballpark when we saw the initial worksheet. We went back to the drawing board, collaborated, reduced areas, got creative. We ended up asking for a 2.75, and I think we got a 3.2 because the town ended up giving us some extra money they had. So
remember, this is a good time to just remind everyone that this is a process. It's an ongoing collaborative process, back and forth, including the committee, where we get your thoughts on the budget, and then we go back and talk a bit more about other needs.
Yes.
that you may,
Right, so, I mean, so you'll see this,
Remember,
you'll see this worksheet probably,
a lot.
at the next, at every meeting that,
And you can see our budget calendar spells it out.
So with that in mind, and the fact that it's 8:30 and we have an executive session today, are there any questions for Ms. Owen on this preliminary budget worksheet?
I have a
I
question.
have a question.
have a
Has
question.
anyone talked about the number, so I guess this is like a whole team question, really, like co-teaching at the Osgood and the Deer Hill? Do we have any talk of more
Yeah.
staff that would help us round out our special ed teaching staff in a way that would allow,
More co-teaching?
yeah,
And that would include training.
right?
So we do have in our budget going out, some discussion and
Right.
thoughts about when to do that. We didn't have that in this year, meaning FY '23's budget, but
Right,
this doesn't really show our projection out 3 years,
right.
which has a lot more in it. Because remember, we're trying to put together a full scope and sequence of needs, but we're also trying to articulate those needs as a district and individually to our strategic plan. So it's, there's
Part
a
of
second.
discussion, it's just
It's
that
a great question.
your
Great question.
prioritization and timeline and big picture thinking is that it is not in this round.
No, there are tiers, and that would be something that, if the committee would like to see us present as we move forward, we do have tiers of,
I think that might be valuable, and I don't know that it's valuable, but I think it might be valuable, and I think it maybe is worth a discussion about whether or not it actually is, but maybe. I don't know.
well, yeah.
But anyway, it's good to know that that's on the radar and part of the conversation and a need that is recognized.
Could you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
Saying
Just
it's,
happy.
just saying it's good to know that that's something.
No,
Okay, good.
and we also have to remember that this year, every one of our bargaining units is up.
Right.
So we have to negotiate everyone.
Right.
So we try to
Lance's
be
and Paul's department, right? Or-
thoughtful by not adding too much when we know we have to bargain with every group.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dodd.
My only comment, and we mentioned this at our subcommittee meeting, is to think about whether or not we want to go bigger, to accelerate some of these needs. Because, there are things, and I'm glad to see the middle school math specialist is in there. But if we do have needs that we need to address to put our students first, to get ceiling tiles in the ceilings, let's put those in here. I mean, and let's not worry at this point about that bottom number. Let's worry about the top numbers and the things we need to do for our schools to make them, as Dr. Sullivan has said, there's no reason why our schools can't be the best schools in the South Shore, if not the state. So let's put that in there, because I think that's a good aspiration for the town. Let's plant the flag and let everyone know that we've got a path forward, and we're going to be asking and working towards it.
That's a great message for us to take back to the leadership team
Right.
too.
Right.
Because it's important for folks to know what we want
Right,
and what we need,
right.
knowing that, we might not get everything.
Yep.
So that's important. Thank you.
Important, I agree.
Mr. Kearney.
Yeah, I just want to echo that times 10. I think this should be a 1 in front of that 300,000. And that's the real number. I think we need a math specialist at the high school. And I can see going back to Lance's point. I just think for years, this school's been underfunded. And, you look at 21 million or 22 million, geez, there's baseball players that make that in an hour, and not in an hour, in a year. And this is a whole school budget. And I know I'm trying to be respectful to the town because I know our police department their building's terrible and there's so much needs in the school, in this community. However, I just want to reiterate what Lance is saying is we need to show everything that we need to get these kids through it, especially these last 2 years. We got a lot of making up to do. So some of your after-school programs that you're talking about with the math and the tutors, they have to be in there. If we need wellness coaches, we should have it in there. Whatever it's going to take for our community to come back from this, we need to do it. So if we That's our job. I think that's our job as community leaders in letting the town know that we need these funds. So I just would like to reiterate what Lance is saying, go back to the teachers and say, look, if this was a perfect world and we were able to get another one in front of them, what are the things that we would want to do? And then we go back to the community and say, hey, if we have to raise taxes, we have to raise taxes. Let's not be afraid of that. I was so tired of acting like we're begging. No, this is what we need to be successful for our kids. And if we're not going to give it to them in buildings, then we're going to give it to them in human resources. Okay? So I think that's the message that we're sending, is that we'll back it up that we need it.
And just a shout out to the school committee the last few years have really supported this, because we have moved a lot of positions in, supportive positions for social emotional learning, academic positions for literacy and math and technology. And yeah, we need to keep doing it. We've created as we've seen so prominently today, an independent middle school,
Right.
which has basically the same staffing model now, equitable to their size as the high school. So, I mean, we're really pushing that, but I sincerely appreciate your, your moxie in this. It's great.
Yeah, and to what Jack's point last night, and I'll speed this up. I did attend the town meeting, and yeah, it was tiring, man. It was till 10 o'clock, and he's right. If we show the need for it, the parents will come out and support the kids. That is strong in this community. And if they know what they need, and we have the data to show it, and I think Matt's like right there. And I do think that we should add a math specialist to the high school.
Well, I think we just take this message. I mean, I think that the message is,
Hear it.
we want to support you.
Right.
So let's do let's do a perfect world sort of ask, and then we'll go from there.
Right.
I think that's the message. So, Mrs. St. Ange, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Moving on to the next section of the agenda. Thank you, Ms. Owen, for the finance
Thank
update.
you.
Appreciate that. As always, the school committee comments and discussion. Just to sort of skip ahead one, we haven't had another school facilities meeting since the last update, so there's no update there. So moving back.
Well, there is an update. I have an update for that. The $250,000 was approved for the school facilities committee's wish for a feasibility study. However, it was interesting, and I did want to bring this up to us, that the vote was tied in with the $750,000 town. And you could see what happened there. They voted, there was two votes. One was cleared 5-0 for the Board of Selectmen on voting for items 2 to 5. And 2 to 5 included what the school needs and a couple other things. But one of them was a vote that without the town hall $750,000. So my question would be to the select board, and why did they ask our ask? Because you couldn't, if you wanted to vote for the schools, then you had to vote for the town hall, which I don't think was fair.
That's why they did it.
And it was pointed out by, and you could see it on the select board vote, that they were sending a message that they did not support the town 750,000, but they did support the school ask. So I guess our statement should be, and I'd like to get some kind of like sense of like, how, because I can tell you how I felt. I felt like, don't put our school with your town hall, because it's two different things.
Our town hall.
It's our
Let's just be
town.
clear.
Yes, I agree. Don't put our school with our town hall, because it's two different entities. And I didn't like the way it was tied in, and I was at the meeting, and I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So we have a school facilities committee where these things, so first of all, Ms. Tierney, I love your passion. That's why I think you're a really valuable member of the committee. But we need to have that discussion in the school facilities.
No, I get that.
That you're on.
Yep,
And Mrs. O'Leary can attend the meeting and ask her question she's about to ask.
Yeah.
okay.
And you can ask the select board that question directly at one of the select board meetings, but we have to keep this meeting.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to ask the question. I just wanted to point that out, that we were tied
At
in.
least, I agree, it was good
Yeah, we
to let everyone.
all know that. I was there.
For the request for design services, for the feasibility study, that's good. And I hadn't thought about giving that update, so that's good. But I was just trying to skip ahead to make sure we just sort of cross something off the agenda here. We'll move back to food services now. I'll direct this right to you. You had requested this be on the agenda, so Mr. Kearney, I'll leave it to you to open it up the discussion here.
Okay, all right, cool. Well, we did have a meeting about food services, and there is some progress. There is some things that we asked for, such as a job description for food service director, along with a occupational chart where who's in charge of what, how does it work? I feel like that's one part of the area that we don't know much about. And I'd like to get more educated on it. I think as a facility finance committee member, such as like, what are we doing? We're going to be adding more stations, which I think is great. I just like to see the plan. I'd like to know when it's going to be done. I'd like to know all these points to that. I also think that there's necessary needs for the Osgood and the Deer Hill for the cafeterias to be renovated and to put the same screenage and to see how we can get fresh fruits and vegetables and try to put that in the curriculum. That's why I think it's important that we actually all see the food service director's job description, because it does need to be implemented. Because, you know, you can hear parents say, well, they're not eating it and they're not doing this. And reasons why. Why aren't they? Because we should be educating kids. There's 10, 15, 20 different apples. These are learning, these cafeterias can be learning centers to learn about fruits and vegetables. So if you're pushing that at home and you go and say, hey, my teacher, my school believes in what you're saying, Dad, it's a lot easier to sell.
You see that us extending into the gardens and talking about the gardens.
Right. So I guess I'd like to just all of us to be more aware of it's a business inside our business, okay? And we need to know how it's run. You know, what are some of the services? I know that there's dietary and all that other stuff, but I'd like all of us to try to get educated as much as we can, because food services is one of the most important things. As much as kids want to eat good food, they don't have time. My children, it's free right now, and I say to them, hey, it'd be a lot easier if you guys would stand. And Dad, I'd eat one of the sandwiches. It's too long to wait in line.
Yeah, that layout.
That layout is not good, and maybe we can do an app that the kids ordered the sandwiches before, and then you get your name on it.
Now, remember, at the Osgood, right now, they are actually serving the food that they ordered at their table. It's like table service.
Okay.
Which is way above and beyond.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
Dignified little people.
But,
Really fun.
but your point is so well taken at middle and high school in particular.
Yeah.
And that I think is in the plan to develop like a restaurant style station
Okay.
idea.
Well,
Then there's more flow.
Yeah.
because
The
you're absolutely
spaces,
right about
but to your
the,
point
like,
about resources earlier, the space is limited.
Yeah.
It's a
not easy.
smaller cafeteria for
The new
the.
school?
for teachers.
But my point is this, I think this committee we have a lot of smart people here, and we have a lot of parents that are here. So I'd love you guys to participate in it, because it's like, my kids don't eat the food, but I also think that in the future, we should have, as Dr. Sullivan said many years ago to us, it should be nutritious and tasty.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two words that are pretty simple, like nutritious and safe.
Mr. Kearney, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What do you think would be a good first step for us to start looking at this? Do you think it would be to have the food service director come to the whole committee, or do you think we should do it in subcommittee? I feel like it should be a subcommittee thing, and I know you tried to recently, and there was some sort of speed bump there where food service director wasn't available or something like that.
We had the food service director come.
Yeah, we've
We
had
were talking about the wellness committee.
I was talking about, that's what I was thinking.
right.
That's okay.
Right.
Yeah, no, this is a
Right.
different
And we-
committee.
Yeah, and we met with her after.
Okay, so I'm earnestly asking you though, what, I mean, so, because I'm as, well, maybe not as passionate about it as you, but I'm as interested in it, about revamping the food services program. So I'm earnestly asking you, what do you think, how do we start making some progress here?
Well, I think that's, it's going to be a whole community involvement from keeping the food service director accountable. I don't think she has any kind of, there's really, what is the job description? And if it's to incorporate in the curriculum, food and how nutritious it is, how are we doing that? How are we doing that? How are we?
But shouldn't we just at least look at overall needs and wants and see how we get there? See what we have currently.
Right.
What restrictions we have that are making it so that that's what our current offerings are, and then compare that to what our needs and wants are, and figure out with our current resources, with the fact that there's a school facilities committee in mind, and maybe we'll have better resources in the near future, relatively near future. Yeah. How we can get there. I'm thinking I feel like we have to establish that first. And Dr. Sullivan and I had an interesting conversation where he advised me of some of the regulatory issues involved, and I'd ask you to sort of summarize that conversation for us, and if you could give that anecdotal tale of the Southern school, the case study there, because it illustrates how you're handcuffed, and
I have an example.
So, well, I mean, there are obviously equations that we have to follow regarding nutrition and what we can order and can't order to keep our regulatory.
Right, to fund, I mean, we are a federally
funding.
funded program.
And that's important. Just to reiterate, I really appreciate the fact that, you recognize the food service director, how important that position is. But I also have to say that this is a whole team effort. And certainly, I'm part of that team, and we're all working together to try to support her. And, and I'm happy with a lot of the things happening, but I respect the thought that we can make it better and that we need to make it better for our students. And I think she does as well. So I'm just trying to make the point that we're all a team, and I want to take my responsibility in that too, to make sure that I'm being accountable. The Southern story was, it was kind of an interest. I don't know. There's a British chef named Jamie Oliver who went down to West Virginia and did it's actually made into a television program, took on a very poor rural, I believe it was West Virginia, school district, and totally reinvigorated the food there with everything you're mentioning. The kids wouldn't eat it, which was, I think, not necessarily equitable to where we are in Cohasset. I think it was, they weren't familiar with some of the eating.
They weren't educated.
They weren't, well, yeah,
Right.
they were more in tune with a lot of starchy, high-fat, quick foods. And when they tried to introduce some of the other foods, they just weren't eating it. It was a really unique scenario in West
but
Virginia.
he had to get pretty creative in order to stay within the confines of what could be offered, and that's sort of,
He had to get amazingly creative because he stayed with the federal formula.
and that's the reason why I wanted Dr. So there was that other element I had forgotten about, the fact that they wouldn't eat it, but really is what I'm saying is you can.
Oh, that was the story.
What's that?
That was the story. I didn't mean to.
It was the story.
Yeah.
It was, but it was the story. And I'm just, but the point is that we can get creative within so there are regulatory facets of this.
Right.
So it restricts what we can and cannot offer. However, if there are options in which if you can get creative enough, right, you can offer some really cool menu items while still restricting yourself to the regulatory confines.
Right.
So, but that's this is a process. I mean, we're not going to figure that out here. So that's why I think we just got to, we can leave this on,
Right.
And I don't think we can have a full discussion. This is just it's sort of introduction to the fact that it's something that's important to you. You wanted it on here, and I think it's important to the district.
Right, it should be. It should
But I
just
also
be
think
important
to
me.
be aware of, I'm not this, I mean, I have a general knowledge of it, but to be aware of the restrictions and the impediments and what she needs to follow is really important for all of us if we're trying to make change, because I think we have to all understand the formula we have to work within and understand if we don't work within that formula, what the penalties are. And just get that all on the table, no
Right.
pun intended,
Right.
but to really be able to change things. I think that's really important, Paul, even more important than maybe, knowing what her responsibilities are, is understanding the obstacles that she has to overcome, because we all need to help with that. And I think it will give you a better understanding. So I would welcome those conversations.
But, and I do want to just shine some light on some of the subcommittee work we've been doing, because this is not in a vacuum. We have had an initial meeting with the Director of Food Services. We did talk about some of those restrictions.
Yes.
One of the more notable ones that hasn't come up in this conversation is the restrictions on suppliers.
Yes.
There's only a few certain suppliers that she's allowed to do it. And then in this current environment especially, there's a literal supply issue of food. So there are a lot of variables. That was eye-opening to me. But Chair McClellan, to your point, one of the things that we've asked the Ms. Owen and Director of Food Services to look at is, what are our options? What are the things that we can do, up to and including, are there third-party vendors who might be able to give us a benchmark? What are other districts doing? Are there other districts that are doing, and Mr. Kearney was going to look and see if there's other districts that are doing it right and in a better way, and if they've solved some of these problems. So we are embarking on that goal right now. So there will be more to come at the subcommittee group. And just so everyone knows, we have started monthly subcommittee meetings that will appear on the Tuesday before each other school committee meeting. And so we'll have better updates and keep that moving forward. So
And I think that's a great segue out of this discussion, Mr. Dial, because it is something where I think most of the ideas will be developed and ferreted out at the subcommittee level.
Agreed.
I'll leave Mr. Kearney
Right.
this on here, just
Please,
like the school
please.
facilities.
I think you had a comment. Did you?
Oh, yeah, I just think that this can be a very productive conversation to have. I think we just need to maintain an appropriate lens and focus and look at it as a programmatic issue and
Yes.
not like attacking a person issue, which is
Yeah.
what it felt like at the beginning to me.
Right.
I've not worked with it as closely as you have here in Cohasset. In college, I had some experience just because of some projects I was doing in the state of Vermont where they cannot serve Vermont apples, Paul. They have to serve the apples from the state of Washington
Yes.
because that's what's subsidized.
Right.
So it is so regulated.
Right. No,
And
get
so I
that.
think understanding those regulations is a great way for us to then zoom in from there. I feel like that needs to be the lens.
And I think that's something that the subcommittee can figure out and then present to us, and I'll leave this on here, just like we do the school facilities committee, which refers to another committee and the work of another committee.
Yeah.
Just so that it's at the forefront. I think it's that important.
Right, thank you.
On there, okay? But
Right.
for now, I want to move on and we'll wait until there's another.
Absolutely, and I just want to say that I do appreciate the food director for what she's doing. I do appreciate what people are doing in the lunch ladies. I just want to make it more efficient. I want to know who's responsible for what. I was told we have a dietitian. I never knew that. So these are the variables that you got to know your players, you got to know what you have. But if you're stuck, I felt like, and I've been on this committee for 4 years. I feel like I've been in the dark every time I've mentioned it. So I thank you for putting it out there, because it's something that it has to be a community involvement,
Yes.
not just me, because, I don't have to eat the food. I mean, my kids aren't eating it. However, I know that there's a direct correlation between good food and good grades. And if you want me to do a presentation on all that, I will be glad to do it in the future.
Well, maybe we'll see that.
Yeah, you will.
There's a couple of comments about.
Mrs. Cleary has raised, yes, the fact that there are some comments.
Kristen Quinn, 219 Sawyer, Revolution Foods is an excellent free opportunity I've brought up before. Kid inspired, chef approved, a free Boston service.
Nice.
Also said, they include foods from a variety of cultures as well.
Right. We talked about that, having a.
Which is great.
Yeah, having a Indian food day or a
Yes.
Italian food day to educate people on diversity, right? That's a great way to improve that.
Yep.
And those are the things that I'm talking about. Those are the things. And I don't think it's on the food service director to know that. I just think that we need as a community to have some kind of a focus group on how we all do that. And I'm glad you recognize.
All right, we're going to take one more.
Laura
community
Sherry,
comment, then
who
we're done
has
with this.
commented before, so we have her address, said soup would be great.
All right,
What'd you say?
soup.
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 Would be great.
Soup, yeah,
We do have soup.
okay.
okay.
I love soup.
All right, so moving on to the
Too hot for soup.
subcommittee and liaison position. Are there any updates from you, Mrs. Cleary?
No, just that policy met, continues to meet, continues to work through the binder, and that communications met, and we will meet again with Lisa Radin this week coming up.
The 20th.
Doing yeoman's work there, that policy subcommittee.
start, putting one foot in front of the other.
Mr. Dial, any updates?
You have effectively received the update from the Facilities and Capital.
We sure have. We thank you for that update, Mr. Dial. Mr. Kearney?
And thank you for, you had all the updates.
Mr. Kearney, thank you. Mrs. St. Ange?
I attended the Alternative Energy Committee meeting last week, and we saw a presentation from the company that would be like providing the electric school buses. So it was a very general presentation, and once we figure out the survey stuff, which I'm sure you already sent Sue, and we'll just make sure it gets into the right hand, they can come up with some sort of proposal and offer something more specific to share that information with us in the new year. So that's just forthcoming.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent eval, we need to schedule a meeting for that subcommittee.
I'm around.
Okay, that's it. So moving on to the next section is approval minutes. There are no minutes to approve tonight. I do not believe. I did not see any. Ms. St. Ange, none, right? Okay, so topics not reasonably anticipated. We do not have any that I know of, but we do have a reason to move into executive session. There's no one here in person anymore, but if you're watching at home, there is nothing substantive after this executive session, so you can leave knowing that you saw the entire school committee meeting. Yes, Dr.
We'll
Sullivan.
end the Zoom right now because we're still live in session here.
We're going to do that. Zoom is going to go away, so you won't see us anymore, but you're not missing anything. We're moving into executive session and then adjourning. So we do, before you take us off, Dr. Sullivan, need to publicly move into executive session
Yes,
for
of course.
the reason stated, which is number 3, to discuss strategy relative to collective bargaining or litigation. Is there a motion to move into executive session for that
So
purpose? Motion is made by Ms. St. Ange. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dial. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion clearly passes. We're now in executive session. Dr. Sullivan?
What time is it?
Please stop the Zoom feed and the live Facebook.
8:57.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
8:57
Merry
PM.
Christmas. Happy
Okay,
holidays.
awesome.